The story opens with a timeless truth. Love is not given. It is won. It is a competition where you fight to be chosen, and he thought he had finally succeeded. But that was just a story because until this very moment, his world was intact. Our boy Yuzuki can only stare in shock as everything comes crashing down. His girlfriend asks why he's here, reminding him he was supposed to be sick at home. His mind freezes, unable to comprehend the betrayal unfolding before him. The other man in her bed just scoffs, dismissing Yuzuki as being unnoticeable like air, and she agrees, admitting his quiet nature was convenient but nothing more. With cold eyes, she looks at Yuzuki and tells him it's over between them. He turns to leave, unable to fight back as she says it's for the best. A memory flashes through his mind, a gift he promised to cherish. The scene cuts to the present, where Yuzuki is telling his story to someone. His friend can't believe it, asking if he really just walked away. Yuzuki just looks down, admitting there's no point getting angry at someone who's like air. But his friend explodes in frustration, yelling that she was the one who cheated and used him. He knows his friend is right, but the pain is still too raw. He remembers the other guy, so confident and popular, a type he could never hope to beat. And he breaks down, convinced that a romantic weakling like him never stood a chance. His friend watches, his anger fading into pure concern. Drowning his own frustration in beer, his friend slurs that Yuzuki deserves happiness too. Yuzuki can only thank his friend for getting angry on his behalf. But his friend insists that he needs to get angrier, to stop being so passive. He asks if Yuzuki is really content to live his life just bottling everything up inside. In a drunken burst of inspiration, he yells that you can't just wait for happiness, you have to win it. Right on cue, the TV displays a dramatic romance show called Eden of Destiny. His friend is shocked by the coincidence, pointing out how his words synced with the program. Yuzuki recognizes it as one of those popular dating reality shows. A show where strangers travel on a luxury cruise ship to find their one true love. It's a world of beautiful people in glamorous settings, a spectacle of love and heartbreak. And as he watches, a dangerous little thought begins to form in Yuzuki's mind. He finds himself wondering what he would do in a world like that. His friend catches on, asking if Yuzuki is actually thinking about joining the show. And just then, the show's mascot makes a huge announcement from the program. They're officially casting for Season 2, and anyone looking for love can apply. But there's a new twist this season, a prize for the final couple. A staggering 100 million yen. The sheer amount of money leaves both of them absolutely speechless. His friend grabs a hesitant Yuzuki, telling him not to be scared because he'll be there with him. He declares that the cure for a broken heart is a new love and a lot of money. Shoving a phone in his face, he tells Yuzuki to stop thinking and just act. The application form is surprisingly detailed, asking for his entire life story. He knows the odds are stacked against him, with applicants flooding in from all over. He can't help but wonder if an ordinary, unpopular guy like him even has a chance. But against all odds, an official notification arrives. He's passed the first screening. And just like that, he finds himself standing before the legendary cruise ship. His friend is right there with him, just as starstruck by the sheer scale of it all. Stepping inside, they're greeted by a bizarre and elaborate display. A recreation of the Garden of Eden, a literal paradise built inside a ship. The sheer spectacle of it all is overwhelming, making his heart pound in his chest. He feels as if he's being trapped in this new artificial world. His friend points to a sign on the tree, instructing them to place their invitations inside. They wonder if they're really supposed to slide their letters into the strange opening. With a deep breath, they feed their invitations into the darkness of the tree. In response, the statue of Eve offers them a large, perfect apple. The apple opens like a container, revealing 2 white envelopes inside, one addressed to Yuzuki. His friend is stunned to see their names written on the front. They open them to find their official nameplates and matching cards for the show. But in his nervousness, Yuzuki's envelope slips right through his fingers. He watches in horror as it falls into a narrow gap at the base of the statue. While his friend asks if he's okay, Yuzuki scrambles to the floor to retrieve it. He looks up in shock to see a woman in a white dress standing right over him. Without a word, she places her heel directly on his back. And from his position on the floor, he gets an unintended and embarrassing view. He finally grabs his envelope, stammering as she casually apologizes for not noticing him. Her face registers a flicker of annoyance, if not outright disgust. But Yuzuki is completely starstruck, insisting it was his fault for having no presence. The woman looks down, her expression cold as she considers his words. She agrees that he's right, before turning away without another glance. His friend just laughs, teasing him for being lucky enough to get stepped on by a beauty. But their conversation is cut short as a massive set of doors creaks open before them. Beyond the doors lies a grand ballroom, a dazzling spectacle of pure opulence. The entire scene feels like something straight out of a movie, and it's filled with impossibly beautiful people, a world completely different from his own. Yuzuki feels completely out of his depth, wondering how an ordinary guy like him was ever chosen. He tries to rationalize it, thinking they must have cast a wide variety of people, but then he sees something. A familiar face calls out to him, and Yuzuki's blood runs cold. It's the very man who was in his girlfriend's bed, the one who destroyed his world. The man offers a casual, insincere apology before asking why Yuzuki is even here. Yuzuki can only stammer, asking if his ex-girlfriend is on the ship as well. But the man just laughs, saying their relationship was never serious, a concept that someone like Air-kun would never understand. With a smug grin, the man wishes him luck, leaving Yuzuki to stew in his own misery. His friend returns with a plate of caviar, completely unaware of the bombshell that just dropped. Suddenly, the show's mascot appears on a large screen, welcoming everyone to the Eden of Destiny. Tiny, adorable assistants begin serving drinks, adding to the bizarre atmosphere of the event. The mascot announces that everyone present was chosen from thousands of applicants. They're meeting a work of fate, but its cheerful tone shifts, revealing that not all 1,000 contestants will actually make it onto the ship. To decide who stays, they will all participate in a game called Heartpounding Matching. The game will require the nameplates and matching cards they received at the entrance. The mascot assures them the rules are incredibly simple. They'll have 1 hour to mingle, after which they must write down the number of the person who catches their eye. Yuzuki pulls out the matching card, looking at it with uncertainty. It's a form with 10 slots, where he's supposed to rank his top 10 choices. The mascot's voice clarifies that they must fill out all 10 spots, much to Yuzuki's surprise. And if they're really smitten, they can even write the same number multiple times. The numbers correspond to the nameplates everyone is instructed to wear. His friend whispers that if they successfully match with someone, they pass this round. The mascot's eye gleams as it prepares to start the game. With a cheerful cry, it announces that the game has officially begun. Immediately, the room erupts into motion as people start to mingle. Yuzuki is instantly lost in the sea of confident and beautiful contestants. His friend points out how some contestants are already drawing massive crowds. One man in particular, Mamia, effortlessly commands the room's attention. A woman notices the pin on his lapel, recognizing it as a lawyer's badge. He confirms it with a charming smile, admitting he doesn't usually wear it in private. The other contestants swoon, realizing the show specifically cast high-status individuals like him. Meanwhile, Yuzuki's friend spots a woman across the room and declares she's his type. Without a moment's hesitation, he rushes off to make his move, leaving Yuzuki behind. He approaches her directly, telling her she's the most beautiful person he's seen. The woman blushes, graciously accepting his forward compliment. Yuzuki can only watch in amazement as his friend's simple, honest approach actually works. Inspired by his friend, Yuzuki decides he needs to stop overthinking and take a chance. He knows he isn't over his ex, but this is an opportunity to take a new step forward. Gathering all his courage, he nervously tries to get the woman's attention, but he's immediately cut off by another man who smoothly asks for a moment of her time. The man offers a dazzling smile, happy to oblige, and the woman accepts his invitation without a second thought. Yuzuki can only watch them go, realizing that of course she'd prefer a high-status guy. To him, she's a beauty from another world, completely and utterly out of his reach. He can't help but check her nameplate, committing her name and number to memory. His other attempts to mingle are just as fruitless, as the other women ignore him completely. He watches as another contestant, a famous hairstylist, effortlessly charms the women around him. Just then, one of the tiny tomato assistants rushes past with a tray of food. But the little server suddenly loses its footing and begins to fall. Yuzuki's eyes go wide, realizing the disaster about to happen. He instinctively lunges forward, trying to catch the falling tray. The entire room turns to watch the chaos unfold in slow motion. But he's too late, and the entire dish ends up splattered all over his suit. The other contestants can only stare, whispering about the embarrassing spectacle. As he sits there in shock, a voice calls out to him from behind. It's his rival, who looks down with a smug grin, mocking his ruined clothes. He offers a handkerchief, telling Yuzuki not to worry about such a small thing. He then calls him a clumsy klutz, adding that it's almost cute. The other contestants whisper, noting how his plainness and clumsiness make for a terrible combination. Leaning in close, he once again uses that humiliating nickname, Air-kun. He whispers a cruel question, calling him pitiful for his inexperience. And with a casual wave, the man walks off, leaving Yuzuki completely unable to respond. But just as he's wallowing in his misery, a gentle voice asks if he's all right. He looks up to see a kind-looking woman with glasses offering him a wipe for the stain. Yuzuki is completely flustered by the act of kindness, stammering out his thanks. He just stares, still processing the first genuine interaction he's had all night. She tells him she can tell he's a good person just by looking in his eyes. Yuzuki is completely flustered by the sudden and genuine compliment. She explains that she's good at reading people, able to understand them just by their gaze. She points out how he instinctively tried to protect the little tomato server from falling. With a warm smile, she calls his selfless act wonderful. In that moment, Yuzuki sees her as nothing less than an angel, and he knows he wants to talk to her more. He stammers that he's the one who's grateful for her kindness. Gathering his courage, he blurts out that he wants to match with her, Momozono, and to his shock, she agrees, saying she'd be happy to move forward with someone like him. Just as they connect, a sign announces that the mingling time is over, while his rival watches from a distance. Yuzuki sits down to fill out his card, the pressure mounting as he remembers the rules. He only truly spoke with Momozono, but he finds himself writing down Shiraayuki's number over and over again. The results are in, and the crowd waits anxiously to see who successfully matched. And the first couple announced is Momozono, with a man who isn't Yuzuki. His world shatters for the second time in as many days. He can only watch in disbelief as she celebrates on stage with another man. The two of them look perfectly happy together, a picture of success. And in that moment, a painful realization dawns on him. The next match is announced, Shiraayuki Ira, the woman who stepped on him, and the high-status lawyer she was talking to earlier. And the next match is Yuzuki's friend, who celebrates his own success on stage. Yuzuki can only stand and watch from the crowd, a stark reminder that love doesn't start until you're chosen. The mascot cheerfully congratulates all the successful couples, asking for a round of applause. But a familiar mocking voice calls out to him from behind, once again using that hated nickname. It's his rival, who now has his arm wrapped around Momozono, the very woman who showed Yuzuki kindness. Yuzuki realizes with dawning horror that his rival only matched with her to spite him. He clenches his fist in helpless rage, convinced he can never win against someone so cruel. But in that very instant, something explodes right in the middle of his rival's chest. Yuzuki's eyes go wide, unable to process the sudden, violent splatter. His rival looks down in utter confusion, completely covered in a strange black substance. Momozono screams in terror as the black substance covers them both. The rival stumbles back, his body collapsing from the sudden impact. Yuzuki can only stare as the man hits the floor, leaving Momozono splattered and horrified. She reaches out a hand, desperately crying for someone to help her. But before anyone can react, another explosion erupts, this time from her own chest. Her glasses are sent flying as Yuzuki watches, completely frozen in place. His mind snaps back to reality, desperately searching the crowd for his friend, Gao. He spots him standing perfectly still, seemingly untouched by the chaos. A wave of relief washes over Yuzuki, thankful that his friend is safe. But Go just looks down in shock as the same black substance bursts from his own chest. Yuzuki watches as his friend's body goes limp, a hole blown straight through him. The force of the impact sends Gu crashing violently to the floor. Yuzuki rushes to his side, desperately calling out his name. He can only stare in horror at the gaping wound in his friend's chest. And all around them, the same scene repeats as other contestants begin to explode. The ballroom descends into a symphony of screams and terror. But the show's mascot just watches the carnage with a serene smile. It declares that love is a battlefield, where only the strong survive. It calls their screams a beautiful melody, a song of harsh reality. The survivors cry out for help, but the mascot offers no answers. The mascot cheerfully explains that the exploding contestants are simply the losers of the game, who must now exit. The survivors recoil in terror, realizing that exiting is a euphemism for death. It clarifies that matching was never the goal. The true objective was to earn at least 100 points from other contestants. A massive leaderboard appears, showing the scores of all 1,000 contestants, leaving Yuzuki stunned. He sees his own name on the list, ranked 789th with exactly 100 points, just enough to pass. The mascot then poses a question, wondering if they're curious why some successful couples still failed. It then turns its attention directly to Yuzuki, using him as an example. It coldly points out that his friend Go is gone, despite successfully matching with someone. The woman he matched with, however, is still alive. A strange outcome since they both chose each other. The reason is simple. Their rankings for each other were different, resulting in a fatal mismatch of points. The mascot reveals the point system. A first-choice vote is worth 50 points, with the value decreasing for lower ranks. It explains that Gu's partner ranked him 6th, giving him only 9 points toward his total. And since he failed to earn the remaining 91 points from anyone else, he was eliminated. Yuzuki stares in utter disbelief, the cruel logic of the game finally sinking in. He realizes with a jolt that if she had just ranked Go higher, his friend would still be alive. The woman can only stammer an apology through her tears, insisting she had no idea. But the mascot coldly tells her that Gu's failure to get enough points is her responsibility. The assistants add that an hour is simply too short to get to know anyone beyond surface-level traits. The mascot declares that making a strong impression is all that matters, even if it's a bad one. And in that moment, Yuzuki realizes the only reason he survived is because he made a public spectacle of himself. The mascot explains that when everyone flocks to the same popular contestants, the votes become too concentrated for anyone to survive. And Yuzuki realizes with a sickening jolt that his rival, Yamamoto, targeted Momozono specifically to hurt him. The mascot then turns its attention back to Yuzuki, reminding him how he was just blaming Gu's partner. But it points out that these very rules are what saved him, precisely because he failed to match with anyone. He's alive only because he received enough low-ranking pity votes from others to scrape by. The mascot gleefully adds that while his clumsiness made an impact, nobody would ever choose a klutz as their number one. The concept of being saved by throwaway votes hits him like a punch to the gut. It clarifies that the game is designed for people to match with their highest-ranked choices. It then reveals a hidden mechanic. Writing the same number multiple times doesn't actually increase your chances of matching. The mascot poses a cryptic question, asking why they would even allow such a seemingly useless rule in the first place. The mascot points out that remembering 10 different people in just 1 hour is an impossible task. And so, to fill the empty slots, people just write down the names of those they vaguely remember. They put their real choices at the top and fill the bottom with harmless people, creating the throwaway votes. And that, it declares, is how Yuzuki survived, by becoming the trash can for those very votes. Yuzuki clutches his friend's body, screaming that it's not fair for him to live while Gu, who actually matched, is gone. The mascot agrees that forming a couple is the ultimate goal of the show. But it callously dismisses this first round as being completely meaningless in the grand scheme of things. It explains that feelings can change, and it's better to be remembered by many than loved by only one. After all, even a neutral first impression can eventually blossom into love. But Yuzuki can't accept this twisted logic as he kneels amidst the carnage. The mascot adds a chilling warning, "Try to run and you'll meet the same fate." It asks if Yuzuki really wants to end up just like his friend Gu. The thought is too much for him to bear. He cries out that this is insane, that people shouldn't die in a game like this. The other survivors can only look on in horror, demanding to know why this is happening. Yuzuki screams at the mascot, demanding to know why his friend had to be the one to die. But the mascot just tilts its head, feigning ignorance. It callously states that it has no use for the trash who failed the very first trial. Yuzuki can only stare, realizing the thing before him is completely unhinged. The screen then reveals the final count, 810 survivors, the chosen warriors of this twisted game of love. The mascot celebrates with a party popper, announcing that the real love can finally begin. Yuzuki can only look on in despair, wondering how this nightmare can possibly continue. He clutches his friend's body, breaking down over his own powerlessness to save him. But a cold voice cuts through his grief, asking if his sorrow is just an act. Yuzuki looks up to see the lawyer, Mamia, completely confused by the sudden question. He stammers a denial, unable to comprehend what the man is even suggesting. But Mamia leans in close, accusing him of deliberately causing the food spill just to stand out. He even questions if Yuzuki's tears are just a strategy to make himself look like a good person. The cruel accusation leaves Yuzuki completely speechless, his mind reeling in shock. He clenches his fist, wondering why he can't even defend himself against such a horrible lie. He remembers the reason he applied in the first place, a simple desire to change himself. He's terrified of dying, but Mamiya's cold analysis forces him to confront his own will to live. And so, standing amidst the carnage, he finds his resolve. Just as the mascot cheerfully announces the start of the next game, Mamia tells Yuzuki not to worry, that he'll be just fine. He claims Yuzuki has the cold judgment to act for his own benefit, making him a reliable ally. Yuzuki can only stare back, completely baffled by the lawyer's twisted logic. Meanwhile, another survivor desperately calls out to the mascot. She begs to be allowed to quit this horrifying game. The mascot turns with a feigned innocence, asking her what seems to be the problem. Through her tears, she explains she's only here for her sick mother, who has terminal cancer. Her mother's dying wish is simply to see her daughter get married. She collapses to the floor, begging to be let go for her mother's sake. The mascot listens, its expression completely unreadable, and then it bursts into tears, seemingly moved by her story of a child's love. It tells her she's free to go, to be with her mother. Overjoyed, the woman thanks the mascot for its mercy, but in that very moment of relief, her chest erupts. The mascot cheerfully wishes her well in the afterlife, asking if anyone else wants to quit. The remaining survivors can only stare, frozen in absolute terror. The remaining contestants can only stare, realizing there's no escape from this game. Yuzuki steels himself, knowing he'd rather die playing than be executed for quitting. He looks up to see Shiraayuki, who calmly states that survival is their only option now. Mamia approaches her, commenting on her composure in the face of such chaos. Yuzuki can only marvel at how calm she is, especially after surviving the first round. The mascot seems pleased that everyone is finally ready to play the game for real. It calls them the Warriors of Love and declares that the main event is about to begin. With a flourish, it announces the first official game, a love Q&A. The rules are simple. They'll be asked a series of questions about romance. And as the tomato assistants hand out tablets, it explains they'll write their answers on the panels provided. The mascot explains that while everyone will answer, only 10 randomly chosen people will have their answers count for each question. The first group of 10 is called to the stage. Their faces a mixture of fear and uncertainty. And then comes the catch. They have only 30 seconds to answer, and if anyone goes over the limit, the entire group dies. The mascot then reveals the condition for clearing the game, to answer every single question correctly. Yuzuki is baffled, wondering how a subjective question about love could possibly have a right answer. Another contestant tries to rationalize it, thinking it must be like a quiz that can be solved with enough thought. But a woman in the crowd points out the obvious flaw: everyone's view on love is different. The mascot just smiles, suggesting that even so, some people are simply more popular than others. Yuzuki struggles to understand the connection as the mascot announces the very first question. The first question is revealed. On a date, should the man pay or should they split the bill? The crowd erupts in confusion, one man screaming that a question like this can't have a correct answer. Yuzuki panics, knowing he has only 30 seconds to choose before his entire group is eliminated. The results from the stage are split, with 4 people choosing A and 6 choosing B. The mascot notes the division before turning to the rest of the survivors, including Yuzuki, who has already made his choice. A pie chart reveals the overwhelming majority vote from the audience. 71% believe in splitting the bill. And with that, the mascot declares the correct answer for the first question is B. The 4 contestants who chose A are immediately declared eliminated. One of the women cries out in disbelief, begging for them to stop. She argues that a man should always pay, insisting she's never had to open her wallet on a date. Through her tears, she insists that women are like princesses, and any real man would naturally pay for everything. She claims that a man with no money has no right to date a beautiful woman like her. But her entitled rant is cut short by a familiar, violent eruption. And just like that, all 4 contestants who chose the minority answer are eliminated in a brutal flash. The remaining survivors can only scream in terror at the sudden, merciless execution. As the tomato assistants clean up the stage, the mascot cheerfully calls for the next group of 10. One of the contestants frantically tries to find a pattern, realizing the audience's majority vote determined the correct answer. Yuzuki sweats, the horrifying logic of the game finally clicking into place. He realizes with a jolt that this isn't a quiz about love at all. It's just a majority vote. The other contestants catch on, understanding that survival means choosing what the crowd will choose. The mascot announces the second question. Do you want to see your lover more during hard times or happy ones? One of the contestants on stage desperately tries to poll the audience for the majority opinion. He asks for a show of hands for option A, those who need their partner during tough times. Then he asks for option B, and the crowd seems almost evenly split. Yuzuki's eyes go wide, unable to tell which side has the majority. He frantically scans the crowd, trying to figure out the correct answer. Another contestant points out that the vote looks too close to call, with some people not even participating. With time running out, the contestants on stage begin to panic, begging the audience for a clear answer. The final tally is revealed. The audience chose A by a significant margin, while the stage contestants were split. And just as Yuzuki feared, the mascot declares A to be the correct answer, sealing the fate of 6 more people. Yuzuki can only watch in horror as the contestants who chose B are brutally eliminated. Another contestant confirms the horrifying truth. The correct answer is simply the majority vote. Shiraayuki suggests a simple solution. If everyone agrees to vote the same way, they can all survive. The young man is thrilled by her logic, seeing a clear path to victory. But the mascot chimes in, scolding them for trying to game the system instead of answering honestly. It warns that anyone caught lying will also be eliminated, leaving the contestant terrified. Yuzuki realizes the true difficulty, conveying the majority opinion to 10 people on stage in just 30 seconds. Just then, Mamia claps his hands, announcing that he has a strategy to beat the game. The crowd turns to him, desperate for a solution as he explains the game's core mechanic. He states that if they can just figure out which option is the majority, everyone can survive. His plan is simple. Everyone in the audience will physically move to one side for option A and the other for option B. He explains that even if the vote is close, this method will make the majority obvious to everyone on stage. With a confident smile, he adds that having some kind of hint is better than having none at all. Yuzuki can only stare, completely in awe of the lawyer's quick thinking. The crowd erupts in cheers, a wave of relief washing over them as they realize they can all survive. Yuzuki marvels at how Mamia managed to unite the entire room in an instant. The mascot announces the third question. Is it okay for your lover to be possessive? Without hesitation, the entire audience begins to move, splitting into their chosen sides. The room is now clearly divided, revealing which side holds the majority vote. And the contestants on stage know that all they have to do is choose B to clear the round. The mascot prepares to announce the correct answer for the third question, and with a unanimous vote for B, all 10 contestants on stage survive the round. The crowd erupts in gratitude, thanking Mamia for saving them all. Even Shiraayuki seems impressed, acknowledging his impressive leadership. Suddenly, a massive monitor displays the rankings from the first game, and at the very top, with an overwhelming score, is Mamia Reiji. Yuzuki realizes that with such charisma, Mamiya's top rank was inevitable, wondering if he can be trusted. Just then, a woman begins to walk towards the lawyer. She latches onto his arm, boldly confessing her feelings for him. But Mamia just looks confused, asking for her name as she introduces herself. She declares him her savior, promising to do anything he asks. Yuzuki is stunned by her boldness, especially in front of Shiraayuki, the woman Mamia matched with. Another contestant tells Shiraayuki to ignore it, but she just dismisses the entire scene. Instead, she wonders if the game will really end this peacefully, a flicker of doubt in her eyes. Yuzuki feels it too, a growing sense that things are going far too smoothly. Right on cue, the mascot calls the fawning woman Nakagawa to the stage for the next round. She turns to Mamia, a little surprised to have been chosen, but she quickly regains her composure, promising to clear the round using his brilliant strategy. Mamia simply tells her to be careful, his expression unreadable as Yuzuki watches on. A deep sense of dread washes over Yuzuki, who can't shake the feeling that something is about to go wrong. The next question appears. Should you throw away mementos from an ex-lover? On stage, Nakagawa waves to Mamia, confident that everyone has chosen A, just like the audience. Mamia seems assured, knowing that the correct answer must be A. She smiles, relieved that no one else has to die. But the mascot reveals the correct answer is B, the complete opposite of their choice. Her expression shatters into pure, uncomprehending shock. She stumbles backward, screaming in terror as she demands to know what's happening. And in a brutal instant, all 10 contestants who chose A are violently eliminated. Yuzuki and the others can only stare in horror, completely baffled by the outcome. And a sickening realization hits Yuzuki. The correct answer was never the majority vote. The mascot's eyes swirl with a twisted glee as it prepares to ask the next question. The crowd panics, Mamia screaming that it was supposed to be a majority vote. Yuzuki realizes that even with only 2 options, it's still just a 50-50 chance at survival. But the next question isn't a simple choice. It asks for a specific number of dates before a confession. Yuzuki's face drains of color, completely stunned by the impossible new rule. Even Shiraayuki points out the absurdity, wondering how there could be a correct answer for something so personal. Yuzuki desperately looks to Mamia, hoping the lawyer has another brilliant plan. But another contestant suddenly confronts the lawyer. He angrily reminds Mamia that he was the one who promised the majority vote was the answer. Mamia simply turns, admitting that his theory was incorrect. The man grabs Mamia by the collar, screaming that his reckless plan got people killed. But Yuzuki steps in, trying to explain that everyone believed in the same strategy. A man with glasses points out that Mamia never promised a perfect solution, only a possibility. Yuzuki tries to refocus the group, insisting they need to find a new plan immediately. But Mamia just calmly calls out Yuzuki's name, completely unfazed by the chaos. The mascot interrupts their argument, telling them to stop bickering and concentrate on the game. It then reveals a shocking twist. A hint to the correct answer has already been given. Yuzuki's mind races, completely baffled by the mascot's cryptic clue. The other contestants panic, desperately trying to recall any hint as the next group takes the stage. On stage, the new contestants are already divided, arguing over how many dates are needed before a confession. Yuzuki desperately tries to make sense of the mascot's cryptic clue. It explains that while love is subjective, some people are simply more popular than others, and the hint clicks in his mind. The answer belongs to the most normal person. A woman on stage, a writer for a romance magazine, confidently declares that the third date is the standard. But the others argue frantically as the mascot calls time on their debate. The results are revealed, a wide spread of answers with the correct one being 5. As the elimination is announced, one woman grabs the writer in a rage, furious at being misled. The writer fires back with a cruel insult as Yuzuki and Mamia look on from the crowd. But their argument is cut short as they're both eliminated in a brutal simultaneous burst. Yuzuki stares at the carnage, a horrifying new possibility beginning to form in his mind. Mamia realizes the correct answer was the average of the 10 contestants' choices, rounded up. Yuzuki looks on, having figured out the horrifying new rule himself. He remembers Mamiya's words about popular people just being normal, and the lawyer connects the dots. Normal simply means average. He turns to Mamia, who just stares back with an unreadable expression. The lawyer then asks a simple, loaded question. Does Yuzuki trust him? Yuzuki stammers, insisting that he doesn't trust him at all. But he knows that Mamiya's logic is sound, and cooperation is their only hope. Mamia places a hand on his shoulder, calling him a reliable ally. Yuzuki can only look back, still unsure of the man he's just allied with. The man with glasses smugly confirms he overheard their theory about the average. Yuzuki is stunned that he was eavesdropping, but the man insists he thought of it too. He gets defensive, telling Yuzuki to stop making a fuss over a coincidence. The angry contestant from before steps in, telling the man not to get arrogant like the lawyer. The man explodes in frustration, screaming that he's just as smart as Mamia. Just then, the mascot announces the 12th question, calling the next group to the stage. And to everyone's surprise, the man with glasses, Nishitani, is one of the chosen. He strikes a confident pose, declaring that he will be the one to save them all. But in the very next instant, the entire group is violently eliminated. Yuzuki clutches his head in despair, realizing that even their new strategy has failed. The mascot cheerfully announces the 13th question, and to Yuzuki's horror, both he and Shiraayuki are called to the stage. He looks down at the remains of the last group, realizing they have no solution. He panics, but Shiraayuki calmly tells him it's time to go. He asks how she can be so composed in the face of certain death. But a closer look reveals she's just as terrified as he is. She admits that if they just stand here, they'll be eliminated anyway, so she'd rather go down fighting until the very last second. Her words strike a chord with Yuzuki, who realizes she's right. He follows her lead, ready to struggle until the very end. An eyeball from the previous group rolls to a stop on the stage. Yuzuki recoils in absolute terror at the gruesome sight. A tomato assistant casually apologizes for not cleaning up the mess sooner. The 13th question is revealed, asking for their number of past partners. Shiraayuki can't believe their lives depend on such a ridiculous question. The sheer absurdity of it all makes her break down into hysterical laughter. Yuzuki's mind races, realizing the average theory was wrong since the last group was wiped out. The mascot reminds them that they only have 30 seconds to find the real answer. He despairs, convinced that a plain, ordinary guy like him can't possibly solve this. His eyes land on the ranking board from the first game, his only real accomplishment so far. But as he stares at the board, he notices his rank has changed. He's confused, wondering why he suddenly jumped from 789th to 749th place. Then he spots a strange apple icon next to one of the names on the list, and in a flash of insight, a desperate, crazy idea begins to form. He turns to Shiraayuki, his eyes wide with a sudden realization. He blurts out a question, asking for her number of past partners. Shiraayuki is completely stunned by the sudden personal question. She pushes him away, demanding to know why he's asking something so ridiculous. But Yuzuki insists, telling her to hurry up and answer before they run out of time. The crowd, including Mamia, can only watch in confusion, wondering what on earth he's doing. He pleads with Shiraayuki, begging her to tell him the answer. She shoves him back, completely baffled by his sudden and personal question. But he screams at her to hurry, reminding her that they have to fight until the very end. His desperate words seem to get through to her. In a flustered burst, she shouts out that the answer is 0, that she's never been with anyone. Yuzuki can only stare back, completely stunned by her confession. And just then, the boards all light up, revealing the correct answer is indeed 0. The entire group celebrates, having miraculously survived the round together. Yuzuki then turns to the crowd, explaining how he figured out the mascot's hint about normal people. He reveals the true rule. The correct answer belongs to the person ranked exactly in the middle of the leaderboard. He points to the board, revealing that Shiraayuki is currently ranked 385th, the exact middle of the pack. He explains that the rankings are constantly shifting as people are eliminated, which is why his own rank changed. The crowd murmurs in shock, realizing they never noticed the leaderboard was updating in real time. Yuzuki then points out the mascot's loophole. Only the audience is punished for lying, not the 10 on stage. He declares that the apple icon marks the middle person, and from now on, they just need Shiraayuki's answer to survive. The other contestants are stunned, realizing her answer of 0 partners wasn't a coincidence, and his theory is worth a shot. The entire crowd turns to Shiraayuki, begging her to share her answers so they can all survive. She agrees, saying she'll do it if it means saving everyone else. But the mascot's next question is deeply personal, asking at what age she first read an adult book. Shiraayuki's face flushes bright red, completely flustered by the mortifying question. The crowd begs her to answer, but Shiraayuki can only stammer in embarrassment. But with her answer and the answers that followed, the entire game comes to a close with 770 people clearing the round. Yuzuki and the other survivors erupt in a wave of pure, unadulterated relief. Mamia approaches him, thanking Yuzuki for saving everyone from certain death. Just then, Shiraayuki steps forward, her expression unreadable as she looks directly at Yuzuki. He immediately tries to apologize for forcing her to reveal such personal information. He then blurts out that he's in the same boat, having never been with anyone either. He stammers, trying to explain that he just wanted to share his own private information as an apology. But Shiraayuki just looks back at him, completely baffled by his rambling. She tells him there's no need to apologize because she's only alive thanks to him. With a genuine smile, she thanks him, calling him by his first name for the very first time. Yuzuki can only blush, completely stunned by her sudden warmth. But in the next instant, she suddenly collapses right into his arms. He panics, realizing that the stress of the game has finally made her pass out. Just then, the mascot reappears, announcing that since too many people survived, it's time to thin the herd. Yuzuki holds Shiraayuki close, desperately trying to wake her as he fears the worst. But it's not gas. The tiny assistants suddenly turn on the survivors, beginning a brutal cleanup. The remaining contestants can only look on in absolute terror as the massacre begins. Yuzuki screams in absolute terror as the massacre begins. The tiny assistants swarm the survivors, their cute appearances hiding a brutal purpose. His eyes can only watch, wide with the horror of it all. The mascot cheerfully instructs its minions to clean up the trash. Tears stream down Yuzuki's face as he questions how anyone could be so cruel. He looks on as the bodies are piled into carts, this twisted paradise now a slaughterhouse. He confronts the mascot, demanding to know why they'd create such an elaborate lie. But the creature just feigns ignorance, denying that this is all just some twisted show. Yuzuki holds Shiraayuki close, screaming that this isn't a TV program, it's a crime. Mamia watches from the side, trying to understand the motive behind this horrifying game. The mascot cheerfully confirms that this is all real, a new season of the show with a massive cash prize. It then asks Yuzuki what the purpose of all this could possibly be. With a sickeningly sweet tone, it tells them they're all just here to play its little game. Yuzuki finally snaps, screaming that they are not its toys to be played with. But the mascot just tilts its head, confirming that's exactly what they are. It calls the ship a giant toy box, where they're all just disposable playthings. Through his tears, Yuzuki makes a silent vow that he will not be thrown away like trash. He turns to face the creature, declaring that he will absolutely survive this nightmare. The mascot mocks him for only wanting to save himself, but Yuzuki simply tells it that it's wrong. It then dangles the prize money in front of him, but Yuzuki says he remembers the fine print on the contract. The mascot reveals the true prize isn't money at all, but the power to have any wish granted. Yuzuki's blood runs cold, realizing the winner could simply wish for everyone else to die. But the creature just waves him off, acting as if his horrifying realization is just a bore. Yuzuki points at the mascot, declaring that if they have to risk their lives, then so should the game master. With a fire in his eyes, he vows that he will be the one to crush the creature's life. He promises to do it, no matter what it takes. The mascot just stares back, a strange, unreadable smile on its face. And in a shocking, desperate move, Yuzuki leans down and kisses the unconscious Shiraayuki. The mascot's eye goes wide, completely caught off guard by the sudden act. The creature begins to short-circuit, completely flustered by the intense display of affection. The mascot's head pops off, its internal wiring completely fried by the unexpected display. Its assistants rush to its side as it reconsiders its opinion of the plain, unnoticeable Yuzuki. But it quickly recovers, promising that the next game will be even more entertaining. The scene shifts to a massive amusement park, the next stage of this twisted game. Meanwhile, another woman cozies up to a new man, declaring she'll be sticking with him. Yuzuki frantically looks around for Shiraayuki, who seems to have vanished from his arms. He suddenly finds himself on the floor, looking up at a woman in a bunny girl outfit. She looks down at him with an annoyed expression, wondering who he is. He's completely bewildered, asking where Shiraayuki has gone. But the woman just pins him to the ground, teasing him for being bigger than she expected. She calls him plain and uninteresting, completely unimpressed by what she sees. Yuzuki's mind short-circuits, completely overwhelmed by the sudden and intense situation. He tries to ask where he is, his voice barely a whisper. He looks around to find himself in an incredibly lavish bedroom. A room so grand it looks like something straight out of a movie. The woman casually informs him that this is his room. He asks what she means, but she just plays dumb. She explains that it seems every survivor has been given their own private room. But then she seems to remember something important. Grabbing his hand, she tells him they need to go, and fast. She pulls him through a heavy door and into a room where a strange collection of survivors are already waiting. Yuzuki is completely bewildered by the sudden gathering of new faces. A girl in a gothic maid outfit immediately asks who he is. Another woman with short, dark hair watches him with a neutral expression, and a young, round-faced boy just looks on nervously. Suddenly, a massive screen at the front of the room flickers to life. The show's mascot appears, cheerfully asking if the ladies and gentlemen are falling in love. As Yuzuki recognizes the creature, one of the men tells the others to be quiet and watch. The mascot explains that all 6 of them have woken up in this living room, surrounded by strangers, for a reason. It explains they've been randomly chosen from the survivors to participate in a group date. The woman in the bunny outfit can't believe what she's hearing. As the blinds slowly begin to rise, the next stage is revealed, an amusement park date. Yuzuki and the woman can only stare in awe at the massive park before them. The mascot explains that this is just like a normal romance, where people go on dates in big groups. It reminds them that the first game was just a screening to see who was worthy of being on the show. Yuzuki can't comprehend how they're supposed to find love after witnessing so much death. The creature then confirms that the 100 million yen prize is very much real. But one of the men points out that he watched the first season, and it was nothing like this. He questions the sanity of broadcasting a murder game, wondering what the benefit could possibly be. Yuzuki agrees, asking who could possibly gain from all of this madness. Just then, a table begins to rise from the center of the floor. A tea set appears as the mascot suggests they calm down and have a drink. But it offers a chilling reminder that it could easily poison them at any time. The 2 men can only stare in horror, realizing they have no choice but to obey. Yuzuki looks out at the park, wondering if they can escape now that they're on land. But the mascot reveals the truth. The entire park is on the ship, in the middle of the ocean. It tells them escape is impossible, and that any resistance is completely futile. Yuzuki clutches his head, realizing there's no way out. He has to play the game. The man and the bunny girl can only marvel at the sheer scale of the park. The mascot then announces that it's time for introductions. It explains that to truly know each other, they've been given their usual clothes. The young man with light hair looks down, realizing he's in his everyday clothes. But the woman in the bunny outfit panics, wondering why this is her usual attire. The mascot clarifies that these outfits are meant to help them relax and show their true selves. The short-haired woman asks if she always dresses like that, earning a sharp glare in return. She proudly declares it's her work uniform, introducing herself as Baba Sakiko, a 24-year-old hostess. The man from before begins to clap slowly, introducing himself as a 46-year-old CEO who believes all professions are worthy of respect. Another woman, a 29-year-old influencer named Fukui Yumi, swoons over the CEO's words. Next is the Gothic maid, a 19-year-old student named Runa, who speaks in cryptic, poetic phrases. Yuzuki can only stare, completely out of his depth with this new group. Suddenly, the round-faced boy grabs his hands, thanking him for figuring out the last game's rules. The bunny girl and even the Gothic maid chime in, grateful for his quick thinking. He introduces himself as Yosuke, an unemployed 23-year-old who's just happy to be with someone he sees as a good person. The CEO places a hand on his shoulder, glad to be grouped with someone so capable. Yuzuki can only stammer, completely unused to being the center of attention. As the group gets acquainted, the CEO notes that he's the oldest one here. He smiles, declaring that they must all work together if they want to survive. Yuzuki can only offer a shy, flustered agreement. The influencer fawns over the CEO, while Yosuke is just happy to be part of a reliable team. The mascot cuts their introductions short, announcing it's time to begin. And so, this unlikely group of 6 walks forward together. They're sent off into a world of love and dreams, a twisted paradise. The sheer scale of the park leaves them completely breathless. But Yuzuki knows that beneath this cheerful facade, something is terribly wrong. Yosuke still can't believe this is all happening on a ship, but Runa notices something strange. She points out that the clouds in the sky look unnatural, almost like a projection. She realizes the entire park is enclosed by a massive spherical screen. Runa observes that they are all just birds trapped in a gilded cage. Yuzuki agrees, noting how artificial everything feels, right down to the fruit-themed robot staff. And in a sudden burst of confetti, a new mascot appears, welcoming them to the park and introducing himself as the general manager. The group can only stare as the strange banana-faced creature explains its role as their guide. It then throws a stack of papers into the air, telling them to catch. Yuzuki catches one, wondering what exactly he's holding. It's a detailed map of the amusement park, listing all the different attractions. But Runa immediately notices something strange. Each attraction has a different heart count next to it. The general manager confirms that this is their map, and they must keep it with them at all times. The general manager explains that the rules for this date are incredibly simple, pointing to a massive clock tower in the distance. He reveals they have 3 hours each day for 3 days to collect a total of 5 hearts from the attractions. Yuzuki looks up at the clock, realizing they have a total of 9 hours, but he has no idea if that's enough time. Yosuke looks at the map, asking if they just need to pick games and earn the number of hearts listed. He cheerfully suggests they just pick the attractions with the most hearts to finish quickly. But the CEO cuts in, doubting the game would ever be that straightforward. He points out that a higher heart count probably means a much higher risk. The influencer immediately swoons over his sharp intellect as the mascot looks on, amused. He then adds another crucial detail. The entire group must participate in every game together. The bunny girl looks back in shock, realizing they're all tied to each other's fate. The CEO notes that they're free to choose any attraction, but each one has a different game inside. He suggests they pick a game they're confident they can beat, and the mascot enthusiastically agrees. The bunny girl suggests avoiding anything too physically demanding, though the gothic maid notes she's the only one who might struggle. The CEO takes charge, deciding they should avoid roller coasters and start with a simple one-heart game to guarantee a clear. The others are impressed by his calm and decisive leadership, quickly agreeing with his plan. He then turns to Yuzuki, asking for his opinion and encouraging him to speak up. With a confident smile, he praises Yuzuki's incredible performance during the Love Q&A game. He tells Yuzuki that he's counting on him to pull off another miracle for the group. But Yuzuki remembers that moment not as a triumph of skill, but as a complete fluke he can't explain. He's been in this position before, where the pressure to succeed makes him lose himself completely. The group settles on their first attraction, a one-heart Ferris wheel called First Love in Eden. Runa points out the apple-shaped gondolas, calling them the forbidden fruit that will decide their fate. A new orange-themed mascot instructs them to line up for the popular ride. The CEO and the bunny girl panic, urging everyone to hurry before the line gets too long. But as they rush forward, Yuzuki suddenly freezes in place. He thinks he sees a familiar face in the crowd, Shiraayuki Aira. He reaches out instinctively, calling her name and trying to stop her, but he's grabbed the wrong person. A woman who turns back in complete confusion. The bunny girl yells at him to get a move on, calling him by his last name, Ishura. He follows his group, convinced that if he was chosen randomly, then Shiraayuki must be here somewhere too. He can only hope that he'll get to see her again somewhere in this twisted park. The orange mascot announces that entry for the ride is beginning, and there's no backing out now. It then instructs everyone to hold out their left hand, much to Yuzuki's confusion. A horrifying stone face appears, telling them to place their hands inside its mouth to register. Yosuke panics, convinced the statue's moving eyes mean it's going to bite them. But one by one, they're forced to shove their hands deep into the statue's dark maw. Yosuke screams as he pulls his arm back, with Yuzuki looking on in alarm. A strange watch has appeared on his wrist, confirming his entry is complete. The mascot explains this is a love watch, a mandatory item they can't remove. With a cheerful wave, it wishes them luck and tells them to come back alive from the ride. Yuzuki can only ask if that's really all there is to the game. He thinks that if it's this simple, they just have to ride it out. But then the entire structure begins to shake. In a strange, surreal vision, he sees a woman falling from the sky. He shields his eyes as a dark substance begins to rain down from above, and he looks up to see dozens of people plummeting from the Ferris wheel. The bodies hit the ground with a sickening impact, sending the group reeling back in terror. Yuzuki can only stare in horror, unable to comprehend why they all just fell. Someone points out the horrifying truth. The bottom of the gondolas are wide open. The group panics, realizing that just riding the attraction was a death sentence. But the orange mascot just cheerfully calls for the next group, ignoring the CEO's desperate pleas to stop. The orange mascot just smiles, asking what kind of game they think this is. It introduces the game as the chosen paradise of Adam and Eve, a simple ride in the apple-shaped gondolas. But there's a catch. To survive, they must perform a certain action before the ride is over. Failure to do so within the 20-minute time limit means the floor will open, sending them plummeting to their end. The CEO can only stare in disbelief at the cheerful little creature. The influencer frantically asks for more details, but the mascot declares that no more questions will be answered. It just spins happily amidst the carnage, cooing about the romance of First Love Eden. Before they can protest, the group is shoved into their gondola for their date in the sky. Inside, a large clock begins to count down from 20 minutes, a strange tree statue sitting ominously below it. And as the ride lurches into motion, the group can only panic, wondering what they're supposed to do. The clock inside the gondola begins its 20-minute countdown. Yuzuki flinches as a strange sound comes from the statue. The sculpture of Adam and Eve suddenly comes to life, and from the serpent's mouth a rolled-up piece of paper is spat out. Yuzuki can only stare, realizing a clue has just appeared before them. He unrolls it to find a strange, cryptic poem written on the page, a riddle about spinning circles, hot days, and waking from a dream. The entire group is baffled, unable to make any sense of the bizarre message. Yuzuki knows this must be the hint, but the meaning is completely lost on him. The bunny girl grabs him in frustration, desperately asking if there are any other clues. He takes stock of their surroundings, a digital clock and the strange statue, the sculpture of Adam and Eve, the source of their cryptic clue. He knows there must be another hint hidden somewhere in the gondola, as their apple-shaped prison rises higher into the artificial sky. He desperately searches for an answer to this impossible riddle. But Baba's patience is wearing thin, demanding he find a solution. She reminds him that he's the one who solved the last game, so he can do it again. The others agree, placing all their hopes on his shoulders once more. But the pressure is too much, and he can't think straight with the sudden physical contact. Just then, the CEO speaks up, claiming he may have deciphered the poem's meaning. He recognizes the poem, identifying it as a passage from A Midsummer Night's Dream. Baba is completely lost, asking him to explain what that even is. He explains that it's a romantic comedy about 4 young lovers in a fairy's forest. A story where a fairy named Puck mistakenly uses a love potion, throwing their relationships into chaos. And at the end, Puck administers an antidote, allowing the man to wake up from the dream. She still doesn't get it, but he tells her to reread the poem with that story in mind. He breaks it down, explaining that the spinning circle is the Ferris wheel and the hot day is summer. The other women realize that the lines of the poem perfectly match the story's plot. He continues his deduction, explaining that the phrase "look around" means to see the whole picture. And with a confident smile, he holds up the park map, declaring that's what they need to look at. He points to the map, showing them an attraction called the Fairies Forest. And he reveals that all the park's areas are named after the 4 main characters from the play. The others are completely stunned by his incredible deduction. He explains that the 4 characters are arranged around the Ferris wheel, their starting point. He circles the names on the map: Lysander, Hermia, Demetrius, and Helena, and he explains they're arranged in order of their proximity to the ride, following a specific pattern. The rest of the group can only stare, completely blown away by his intellect. Baba and the influencer immediately start fawning over him, amazed at how quickly he solved it. She even calls him impressive for an old man, much to his slight annoyance. Yuzuki can only look on, completely moved by the CEO's brilliant mind. The influencer clings to the CEO, completely entrusting her fate to him. He just smiles, assuring her that protecting women is a man's duty. With nearly 17 minutes left on the clock, the group celebrates, confident that they've already cracked the code. But Yuzuki looks down at the clue, a flicker of doubt in his eyes. The CEO's logic seems flawless, but something feels terribly wrong. He remembers the sheer cruelty of the previous games, wondering if the answer could really be this simple. He can't shake the feeling that there's another layer to this puzzle, a hidden trap they're all missing. The CEO notices his hesitation, asking why he looks so troubled. Even the bunny girl chimes in, reminding him that his insight is what saved them all last time. Yuzuki voices his concern, admitting he thinks there's a hidden layer to the puzzle. The CEO just looks back, asking what kind of trick he could possibly be talking about. Yuzuki stammers, unable to give a concrete reason for his doubt. He can only explain that it's a gut feeling, that something about this solution feels wrong. The influencer lets out a sigh of pure annoyance. She steps forward, asking if Yuzuki is really suggesting that the brilliant CEO is mistaken. He quickly tries to backtrack, but she presses him for an explanation. She accuses him of trying to undermine the CEO's logic just to make himself look important. Yuzuki tries to protest, but his words are cut off. The CEO steps in to de-escalate, thanking Yuzuki for his concern but insisting they shouldn't be fighting now. Baba admits she understands his caution, given his incredible performance in the last game. The CEO tells him not to push himself, assuring Yuzuki that he can handle it. But Yuzuki's eyes remain fixed on the cryptic poem, unable to shake his unease. Baba smacks him on the head, furious that he's wasting precious time with his doubts. Runa just stares out the window, a silent observer to the group's internal conflict. And the clock ticks down, a stark reminder that they only have 15 minutes left. The CEO tries to rally the panicked group, promising he'll find the certain action they need to perform. Yosuke looks on with pure admiration, completely trusting the reliable older man. Yuzuki tries to explain that he's not trying to undermine him, just that he has a bad feeling. But the influencer cuts him off with a venomous glare, asking if he's still not done. Yosuke looks back with concern, sensing Yuzuki's unease. He can see the doubt written all over the poor kid's face. But in that moment, Yuzuki's eyes go wide with a dawning horror. He realizes that no matter what he says, the group won't listen to him now. They've already chosen their leader, and he's once again on the outside looking in. The CEO just smiles, snapping his fingers as if he's found the final piece of the puzzle. He points to a line in the poem, connecting it directly to the four lovers from the play. With a confident thumbs up, he declares that following the story is their guaranteed path to survival. But Yuzuki clutches his chest, a strange and powerful feeling washing over him. He looks out at the ride, wondering what this sudden, intense premonition could possibly mean. But just as he's lost in thought, Runa suddenly asks him what he just muttered. He points out the window, having noticed a strange detail on another ride. A painting of a goddess on the roof of a nearby teacup attraction. Runa confirms that's exactly what she was looking at as well. Yuzuki wonders why a painting of Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty, would be there. She then points out the symbol next to the goddess, identifying it as the planetary sign for Venus. Yuzuki is completely lost, but Runa begins to explain the connection. She lists all 10 planetary symbols, a piece of trivia he never would have known. Runa seems almost impressed, noting the game's creators linked the goddess of love to the planet Venus. Yuzuki can only marvel at her knowledge, but she just admits it's a personal interest of hers. And in that moment, a new connection sparks in Yuzuki's mind. He realizes the view from this gondola is the only place they can see the entire park, and that painting of the goddess suddenly feels like the most important clue of all. He turns to the others, trying to explain that the poem's dream is a metaphor for escaping this ride. But his explanation is cut short by a horrifying reflection in the glass. A woman from another gondola cries out for help, her face a mask of pure terror. Her hand presses desperately against the window, before sliding down in a final, desperate plea as the group watches in horror. And just as quickly as it appeared, the reflection vanishes, leaving only a dark stain behind. Yuzuki's blood runs cold, screaming that he doesn't want to die here. But Yuzuki realizes something is wrong, wondering why only one person fell when the entire group was supposed to. Just then, Yosuke points to another gondola, his voice filled with alarm. Inside, 2 men are locked in a desperate, violent struggle, and one of them shoves the other straight out of the open door. The man plummets towards the ground below as the group watches on. Baba and Yuzuki can only stare in horror, realizing what just happened. He struggles to comprehend why the contestants would turn on each other like that. The influencer panics, pointing out they only have 10 minutes left on the clock. The tension boils over as she and Baba begin to argue, with Yosuke trying to break them up. She turns to the CEO, desperately clinging to him and begging for a solution. The CEO assures her that he's got this, taking full control of the situation. He focuses on the poem, convinced the key lies in the phrase waking from a dream with a single drop. Yuzuki offers to help him search for clues, but the CEO is completely absorbed. But his offer is met with a violent shove, the CEO rejecting his help. He screams that he's the one thinking right now, his composure finally cracking. He warns Yuzuki not to do anything unnecessary, his face twisted in a mask of pure rage. The influencer steps in to defend him, telling Yuzuki to just stay quiet and let the CEO work. She then turns back to the CEO, her adoration completely unwavering. Yuzuki is stunned by the sudden outburst, knowing they can't afford to fight amongst themselves. Just then, Baba points out the window, screaming that she sees something on the ground below. She points down at the Ferris wheel's base, having spotted some kind of writing on the tiles. The CEO leans in to get a better look, confirming her discovery. On the ground below, a single large character is written on a circular tile. The CEO checks his map, realizing the tile is located in the Lysander area. His theory clicks into place. The 4 areas are named after the lovers from the play, arranged in a specific order. The others are amazed, realizing they just need to find the characters in the other 3 areas to get their hint. Yosuke's face lights up, finally seeing a clear path to survival. The CEO takes command, ordering everyone to look outside and find the remaining characters. Baba presses herself against the glass, using her sharp eyesight to scan the park below. And in an instant, she spots the next character in the Hermia area. The influencer panics, pressing her hands against the glass in desperation. And just as quickly, Runa spots the 3rd character in the Helena area. The CEO praises their teamwork, knowing they only have 1 character left to find. But Runa points out that the final area is too far away to see clearly from their current position. As the Ferris wheel continues its slow, agonizing ascent, their gondola rises higher into the artificial sky. Yosuke points out that they're almost at the very top of the ride, and from their new vantage point, they finally spot the last character in the Demetrius area. With all 4 characters revealed, they finally have their clue. But the CEO can only stare in confusion, wondering what the word could possibly mean. The CEO's eyes go wide with a sudden horrifying realization. Yosuke asks what's wrong, sensing the sudden shift in the older man's demeanor. But the CEO just calmly states that some sacrifices are necessary for the greater good. With a chilling smile, he calls it a noble act, a chance to become a hero who saves everyone else. Yuzuki asks what he could possibly mean, completely lost by the sudden change in tone. The CEO holds up a finger, declaring that this is the certain action they need to perform to survive. And in a horrifying instant, he shoves the other 4 members of the group out of the gondola. Yuzuki can only stare, his mind completely unable to process the betrayal. The CEO then explains his twisted logic, reinterpreting the poem's final line. He reveals the word they found means human, and that the single drop from the poem was literal. He clarifies that the drop wasn't just a person, but a human soul. Yuzuki and the others can't comprehend his insane logic. The CEO explains that just like an elevator, the gondola must have a weight limit. He claims that with 6 people they were simply over capacity, and so, to lighten the load, the only thing to drop was a human life. He presents this horrifying act as the only logical solution. Yuzuki screams, asking if he's really serious about this. The CEO just smiles, confirming that he is absolutely serious. He then tells the group that if they just follow his lead, he guarantees they can all survive this game. Yuzuki can only stare, his mind completely unable to process the betrayal. The CEO explains that the 4 characters they found spell out the word wait. And to clear the game, they must do something related to that very word. His twisted logic concludes that to reduce the weight, they must reduce the number of people. Yuzuki admits the horrifying logic is sound, but he can't bring himself to accept it. Baba screams at him, realizing his plan means sacrificing one of them. But the CEO's face twists into a mask of pure rage. He screams that it's not murder, but a noble sacrifice to save the rest of them. He insists that to clear the game, the weight must be reduced. And with that, all eyes turn to Yosuke, the heaviest person in their group. Yosuke can only stare in disbelief, realizing he's the target. The CEO grabs him, offering a hollow apology for what he's about to do. Yuzuki is completely frozen, unable to believe what's happening. He realizes this is why the other groups were fighting amongst themselves. He wonders if those people actually survived by sacrificing their own. But Yuzuki lunges forward, desperately trying to stop the CEO. He points out that even after someone was pushed from another car, the floor still opened. The CEO just smiles, a chilling understanding dawning on his face. He then asks if that means one sacrifice simply isn't enough. He suggests sacrificing 2 people, telling Yuzuki to stay quiet if he has no better plan. With a cold, calculating gaze, the CEO calmly selects his next target, pointing directly at Baba. Yuzuki's mind races, realizing that if 2 people must go, there has to be a reason. Baba screams in pure terror, completely unable to accept her sudden death sentence. She turns on the CEO, furiously arguing that he's heavier and should be the one to go. But Yuzuki suddenly shoves the clue back into her face, having noticed something crucial. He tells them to look at the poem one more time, his eyes fixed on a specific line. He points out a strange pattern in the text, a sequence of men and women that might be the real clue. The argument immediately shifts as Yosuke declares Baba should be the one to fall, but she insists there are other women. The influencer panics, realizing that she and Runa are now potential targets. She grabs onto Baba, her mind completely breaking under the horrifying pressure. The influencer clings to the CEO, begging him to save her from this horrifying fate. But he just calmly tells Baba that she's the one who has to fall. Her eyes widen in horror as he explains his logic. She's the tallest woman, so she must be the heaviest. Baba explodes in fury, screaming that he's heavier and should be the one to go. But her defiance is met with a sudden, violent strike from the CEO. He declares that he's the one who deserves to live, that he's essential for their survival. Runa can only look on, recoiling from the sudden brutality. Baba collapses in terror, desperately pleading that she has a reason to live. But the influencer grabs her from behind, telling her to stop arguing because the CEO is always right. The two women descend into a desperate struggle on the floor of the gondola. Yuzuki can only watch as the group descends into a desperate, violent struggle. He realizes with a sickening jolt that the mascot is probably laughing at their self-destruction. He knows that if they keep fighting like this, none of them will survive. But he has no idea how to stop them. With the clock ticking down, he desperately searches for another clue, anything to stop the madness. He tries to reason with the CEO, begging him to calm down. But his plea is met with a violent shove, the CEO completely lost to his own twisted logic. And in a shocking move, the CEO throws Yuzuki straight out of the open door. He plummets towards the ground, screaming as his life flashes before his eyes, but his fall is suddenly stopped, his body caught just inches from the ground. He's saved at the last second by Baba, who desperately clings to his leg to stop his fall. She screams at him for falling, but she's not alone. Yosuke is holding on to her in a desperate human chain. The rest of the group strains with all their might, trying to pull him back to safety. Hanging upside down, Yuzuki can only offer a weak thanks for their help. But as he dangles there, a new perspective gives him a sudden, shocking realization. Yosuke tells him to get ready as they prepare to haul him back inside. But Yuzuki suddenly tells them to stop, to just leave him hanging there for now. The others are completely baffled by his bizarre and dangerous request. He insists that this is the answer, that this is how they survive the game. But the group is reaching their physical limit, begging him to help them pull him back inside. With a desperate cry, he tells them to get ready to pull. The entire group strains together, hauling him back from the brink. Baba yells in frustration, reminding him how close he was to falling. But back inside, Yuzuki can only cover his face in despair. He tells them that the CEO's plan, the one they all believed in, will never work. The CEO can only stare, demanding to know what he's talking about. But Yuzuki looks up with grim certainty, insisting there is no other way. He points to the painting of the goddess, declaring the real answer lies in the cosmos. He explains that the planetary symbols are the true hint they were meant to find. Yuzuki then turns to the influencer, telling her to look down at the ground below. He points to the painting of Venus on the teacup ride, the symbol right beside her. The planetary symbol for Venus, the goddess of love. The influencer just scoffs, demanding to know what any of this has to do with their survival. The CEO dismisses it as a coincidence, but Runa explains the connection between the attraction and the planet, and Yuzuki reveals that he saw 3 other attractions just like it. The others can only stare in disbelief at his sudden revelation. He explains that he saw them all when he was hanging upside down from the gondola, a go-kart ride with the symbol for Mars, the god of war, a water coaster marked with the symbol for Mercury, the messenger god. The entire group turns to him, completely stunned by his incredible observation. Runa can't believe he noticed all that in the middle of the chaos, but Yuzuki isn't finished yet. He reminds them of the name of the ride they're on, First Love in Eden. He explains that Eden was the paradise of Adam and Eve, which is another name for Earth. He then tells Yosuke to look down at the base of the Ferris wheel, and right there on the ground is the planetary symbol for Earth. The CEO just scoffs, completely unimpressed by this new revelation. He confronts Yuzuki, arguing that the poem and map are clearly based on the play and that planets aren't mentioned anywhere. But Yuzuki calmly tells him that he's wrong, pointing to a specific line in the poem. He explains that while the CEO thought spinning circle meant the Ferris wheel, it has a second hidden meaning. He declares that the spinning circle is actually the Earth itself. The others can only stare, completely baffled by his new theory. He explains that the phrase, "look around," was a literal instruction to survey the park from above, and by doing so, he noticed the planetary symbols hidden on the other attractions. He lists the 4 planets he found, and Runa realizes she's heard that sequence before. Baba's eyes go wide as a distant memory from her school days suddenly clicks into place. A diagram of the solar system appears, showing the order of the planets from the sun. He then recites a mnemonic phrase, a simple rhyme used to remember the planets in order. Runa confirms that she remembers learning the very same phrase. He explains it's a simple tool for remembering the order of the planets, but Baba still doesn't get it. The order of the planets, starting from the one closest to the sun. The influencer scoffs, asking what any of that has to do with anything. He tells them to look at the poem again with this new context in mind. The spinning circle isn't the ride, it's the earth, and the hot day is the sun. The CEO and the influencer can only stare, completely stunned by this new theory. He explains that the 4 planets he found match the first 4 planets of the solar system, but the CEO just explodes in a fit of rage, calling the idea ridiculous. He screams that it's just a coincidence, demanding to know how the poem's man and woman line fits in. But Runa calmly explains that based on Greek mythology, the planets do have genders. The man and woman aren't a couple, but the 4 planets in order from the sun. But the CEO refuses to listen, screaming that there's no proof the spinning circle is the Earth. But Yosuke suddenly chimes in, insisting there's proof for Yuzuki's theory. He points to the park map, showing the CEO something he noticed while looking at it. He explains that the distance of the attractions from the Ferris wheel perfectly matches the order of the planets. Yuzuki can only stare, completely stunned that the theory is actually correct. The others are amazed, asking Yosuke how he could possibly know something so specific. He explains that as a child, he dreamed of becoming an astronaut and read every book he could find on space. He admits he's always been a nerd who gets obsessed with his interests, and Runa seems to understand. The CEO can only look on in defeat, realizing his entire theory has just been dismantled. The rest of the group rallies around Yosuke, praising his incredible insight. Baba presses against the glass, confirming that the planetary symbols are really there. Baba and Yosuke press against the glass, confirming they see characters written next to each symbol. The symbol for Mercury is marked with the sound Ju. The symbol for Earth is marked with Rio. The symbol for Venus is marked with U. And the symbol for Mars is marked with Ku. Yuzuki's eyes widen as the sounds click together in his mind. He turns to the CEO, realizing the answer isn't weight, but gravity. A force that pulls everything downwards, just like an apple falling from a tree. He realizes this must be connected to the poem's line about a single drop. And if the clue is gravity, then they don't need to sacrifice anyone, because the real solution is something else entirely. The others light up, realizing they can work with this new theory. The influencer turns to the CEO, asking if this means they can all be saved, but his face is a mask of pure defeat. He slams his fist on the floor, screaming for them all to be quiet. He insists that the only logical solution is to drop the heaviest person from the gondola. Runa and Yosuke can only stare in horror at his sudden breakdown. Yuzuki tries to reason with him, but the CEO screams that there is no other plan, and he silences Yuzuki with a brutal backhand across the face. The CEO looms over him, screaming at the kid to shut up, asking what he could possibly understand. Yuzuki can only look up in shock, blood dripping from his nose. The others rush to his side, asking if he's all right. He screams that they're all just dregs of society, a collection of students, hostesses, and unemployed losers. He rants that he's the only one with any real value, the only one who deserves to live. The others can only stare, completely stunned by his sudden and violent breakdown. He then grabs Baba, demanding that either she or Yosuke be sacrificed immediately. But a hand suddenly grabs his arm, stopping him in his tracks. It's Yuzuki, who steps between them, refusing to let him hurt anyone else. He tells the CEO not to get in his way, calling him nothing more than a small fry. And for the first time, Yuzuki looks back with a fire in his eyes, completely unafraid. The CEO is completely taken aback by this sudden and defiant change. He can only stare as the boy he dismissed as heir now stands against him. The CEO demands to know what's with Yuzuki's sudden, defiant expression. He screams at the boy not to get cocky with him. Grabbing Yuzuki, he declares himself the leader and demands absolute obedience. But Yuzuki just looks down, questioning the very idea of a leader. Runa calmly asks the CEO if he hasn't realized the truth of their situation yet. She explains that in this game, there was never a leader to begin with. Yuzuki wipes the blood from his face, stating that they're all just people who don't want to die. To survive, they simply have to bet on the person they believe is right. And in other words, if they don't believe his plan is right, they'll simply change their minds and follow someone else. The influencer's eyes go wide, realizing the tide has completely turned. The CEO screams at her, demanding to know if she's really betraying him. Through her tears, she insists that's not what she's doing at all. She just admits that the thought of sacrificing someone is far too terrifying. Yuzuki then reminds the CEO of his own cruel words about the dregs of society. He asks if the CEO still feels the same way now that the odds are 5-1 against him. The CEO can only stare back, his confidence completely shattered. He tries to backpedal, telling the suddenly intimidating Yuzuki that they should all just calm down. But the clock on the wall shows they have less than 3 minutes left. The others panic, urging Yuzuki to hurry and find the real solution so no one has to fall. But Yuzuki rejects that horrifying idea, declaring that they all have to fall together. The rest of the group can only stare back in utter disbelief. Baba screams at him, reminding him that falling means certain death. Yosuke asks why the single drop from the poem isn't a human soul. Yuzuki explains that the answer isn't to drop a person's life, but to drop the apple, which is the gondola they're all riding in. He turns to Runa, reminding her how she called the gondolas apples earlier. She remembers her own poetic words about the forbidden fruit deciding their fate, and Baba realizes the single drop was a pun, referring to a single apple all along. Runa then points out a subtle but crucial detail about the word apple itself. Yuzuki connects it to the poem, declaring the single drop means dropping the entire apple-shaped gondola. The CEO explodes in fury, grabbing Yuzuki and screaming that his theory is insane. But Yuzuki insists that the cruel answer is for them to fall on their own terms. He explains that if the keyword is gravity, then the action must be to drop something. The CEO grabs him by the collar, demanding to know how they could possibly detach the entire car. He points out the window, screaming that they can't just go outside and unhook it. But Yuzuki looks back with grim determination, convinced there must be a way from the inside. His eyes scan the interior of the gondola, desperately searching for a hidden mechanism. But his search is cut short as the CEO shoves him back, completely rejecting the insane plan. Ignoring the CEO, Yuzuki suddenly reaches for an ornate panel on the ceiling. He notes the strange thickness of the pattern, convinced something is hidden there. With a push, the panel gives way, clicking as it begins to move. His eyes go wide, realizing he can actually remove it. And underneath, a massive button is revealed, a mechanism to drop the entire gondola. The group can only stare in shock at the massive button in his hands. Yosuke's face lights up, realizing Yuzuki's insane theory was correct all along. But the CEO refuses to accept it, screaming that he'll never allow them to drop the car. He argues that there's no guarantee this will save them, that it's just a suicide mission. And Yuzuki can only admit that he's right, that there is no guarantee at all. But Yuzuki screams that staying here is certain death, so their only option is to bet on the 1% chance. The CEO can only stare back, completely stunned by his conviction. He turns to the others, desperately asking if they're really going along with this. He screams, asking if they're really going to bet their lives on this kid's insane plan. But one by one, the others agree, choosing to place their faith in Yuzuki. Yuzuki can only offer a grateful smile, moved by their sudden trust. As he reaches for the button, the CEO panics, screaming that this could kill them all. The entire group can only watch in terror as the final moment arrives. But Yuzuki slams his hand down on the button, ignoring the CEO's desperate pleas to stop. And in an instant, the entire group is thrown off balance as the gondola begins to fall. But for a moment, nothing happens, and the CEO can only ask why they're still here. He turns on Yuzuki, screaming that he told him this insane plan would never work. But Yuzuki just looks down, insisting that something is still missing. His eyes are drawn back to the button, which now displays a new puzzle. He points to the screen, leaving the CEO completely stunned. A complex equation appears, demanding they input a 4-digit number to proceed. Yuzuki's face drains of color, realizing the game isn't over yet. The entire group stares at the new puzzle, the CEO demanding an answer from Yuzuki. He can only stare at the 4 empty slots, completely lost as to what the numbers could be. But Yosuke's eyes go wide, recognizing it as Newton's universal gravitational constant. Yuzuki can only ask what he's talking about, completely lost. Yosuke launches into a full-blown physics lecture, explaining Newton's law of universal gravitation while Baba screams that she doesn't understand a word. But Yuzuki connects the dots, realizing the equation is the key to their gravity problem. Yosuke then reminds them of the famous story of Newton discovering gravity after watching an apple fall from a tree. He grabs Yuzuki, excitedly declaring that his plan to drop the apple-shaped gondola must be the right one. The CEO immediately grabs Yuzuki, screaming at Yosuke to input the 4-digit number if he knows the answer. But Yosuke's face drains of all color. He stammers an apology, admitting he knows the concept but can't remember the exact numbers, calling himself useless, and the clock on the wall ticks down, with less than a minute left to solve it. The others panic, screaming that they're almost at the top of the ride and completely out of time. But Yuzuki suddenly reaches into his back pocket, a new idea forming. He realizes the answer isn't a number they have to remember, but something they already have. His eyes scan the park map, noticing the numbered areas for the first time. The others scream in terror as the clock ticks down with less than 30 seconds left. And in a flash of insight, he finally understands the game's twisted logic. He points to the ceiling, explaining that the answer was right above their heads the entire time. He tells them the code is the numbers of the 4 areas where they found the planetary symbols. The CEO and the influencer can only stare, completely stunned by the simple solution. The others watch in disbelief as he inputs the final digits of the code. And with a final click, the gondola detaches, plummeting towards the ground below. The gondola crashes into a pool of water with a massive splash. He asks the mascot if anyone has ever cleared this game before, and the creature cheerfully confirms that no one has. Yuzuki can't believe this was only a one-heart game, but the mascot just says it's only possible if you have the skill. And with a massive crash, a stone V slams down before them. The orange mascot can only look on, a little surprised by the outcome. Their apple-shaped prison sits half-submerged in the water, a testament to their insane gamble. The little creature peeks inside, playfully asking what's become of them. And on their wrists, the love watches begin to glow. Bruised and battered, the entire group lies in a heap, but they are all miraculously alive. The mascot's eyes gleam, absolutely delighted by this unexpected turn of events. The mascot cheerfully announces that they've cleared the chosen paradise of Adam and Eve. And on their watches, a single heart point appears. They can hardly believe they actually earned their first point. The sheer relief washes over them as they celebrate just being alive. But Baba just looks over at Yuzuki, her tough exterior finally cracking. She breaks down in tears, overwhelmed with relief that everyone made it out. Yuzuki can only stare, completely taken aback by her sudden vulnerability. He's flustered, not used to seeing the usually strong woman so emotional. He instinctively reaches for a handkerchief to offer her, but comes up empty. But their moment is interrupted as a finger points directly at them. He gently wipes away her tears, telling her that everything is going to be all right. Overwhelmed by his kindness, she can only grab his hand and say his name. Yuzuki is completely flustered by her sudden and emotional reaction. The CEO interrupts, still in disbelief, demanding to know how they survived such a massive fall. The mascot explains that the gondola was lined with a super shock absorbent material that deployed at the last second. It clarifies that inputting the correct 4-digit code 6743 is what activated the safety feature. Yosuke turns to Yuzuki, amazed, asking how he could have possibly known the right answer. Yuzuki begins to explain his logic, pointing out that the poem's instruction to look around was repeated twice. He explains that the first instance meant looking at the park from above, but the second repetition must have had a different meaning. Runa chimes in, agreeing that the repetition implied a second hidden layer to the clue. He explains that the second instruction to look around meant to survey the entire park map. Yosuke is amazed, realizing that Yuzuki was the first one to notice this crucial detail. But the others are confused, pointing out that there are no 4-digit numbers written anywhere on the map. Yuzuki looks closer, admitting that the map is mostly illustrations and text. But there is one crucial exception. The numbers assigned to each attraction, each location on the list is marked with a specific number, a detail they had all overlooked in the chaos. The CEO is stunned, demanding to know how he figured out which 4 numbers to use and in what order. Yuzuki points up, explaining that he simply remembered something crucial: the order of the planetary symbols he saw from the gondola window. The 4 planets they found, arranged in their proper order from the sun. Yosuke realizes that by matching the planetary symbols to the attractions and arranging them by their distance from the sun, they get a specific sequence of numbers. The final code, 6743, was hidden in plain sight the entire time. Runa and Yosuke can only marvel at how he managed to solve such a complex riddle under pressure. Even the CEO offers his praise, completely changing his tune and calling Yuzuki a brilliant young man. Baba just looks over at Yuzuki, a new and unreadable expression on her face. But she quickly turns on the CEO, grabbing him by the collar and reminding him how he tried to sacrifice them all. The influencer immediately steps in to defend him, insisting he was just trying his best to save them. But Baba shoves her back, screaming that his best almost got them all killed. Yuzuki rushes in to break them up, desperately reminding them that they're supposed to be a team. The CEO suddenly bursts into laughter, agreeing that Yuzuki is absolutely right. He turns to Yuzuki, offering a sincere apology for losing his composure during the game. He admits that Yuzuki was the better man this round and suggests they help each other from now on. Yuzuki agrees, offering a fist bump to seal their new alliance. And just like that, the two former rivals come to an understanding. The CEO smiles, promising to work together from this point forward. And Yuzuki returns the gesture, a newfound confidence in his eyes. The rest of the group can only watch, completely baffled by this sudden and old-fashioned truce. Just then, the massive clock tower in the distance begins to chime. The group looks up, realizing that their first 3 hours in the park are officially over. The banana mascot announces that the park is now closed, ordering everyone back to their rooms. The influencer is relieved, but Yuzuki realizes they have a long 21-hour wait until the park reopens. He watches as the park shuts down, wondering if they're just supposed to wait until morning. Yosuke notices his concern as Yuzuki wonders if there's anything they can do in the meantime. But Yosuke just tells him to rest, reminding him that conserving his strength is just as important. Yuzuki agrees, realizing that in a flash, the first day has already come to an end. Back in his private room, he collapses onto the bed in complete exhaustion. His body feels heavy, his mind too drained to even think about what comes next. He can't help but wonder how they'll survive if a one-heart game was already that brutal. But his rest is interrupted by a sudden knock at his door. It's the influencer, Fukui, who cheerfully calls out his name. She finds him completely passed out on the bed, wondering if he's asleep. Leaning in close, she playfully pokes his cheek to get his attention. But he doesn't stir, much to her slight annoyance. So she decides to take a more direct approach, calling his name as she removes her sweater. She tells him he's being far too unguarded as she makes her move. And without another word, she leans down to steal a kiss from the sleeping boy. She climbs onto the bed, positioning herself right over the seemingly helpless Yuzuki. But his eyes suddenly twitch, a sign that he's not as unconscious as she thinks. She whispers that she's going to take advantage of him while he sleeps, and leans in close to make her move. But the door suddenly bursts open, revealing Baba with a tray of tea. Yuzuki's eyes snap open, completely caught off guard. Baba can only blush, completely flustered by the scene before her. She points out his disheveled state, his pants completely undone. He scrambles to fix himself as Fukui tumbles to the floor, with Baba looking on in shock. Fukui complains from the floor, furious that her plan to seduce Yuzuki was interrupted. Baba can only stammer, still processing the awkward situation. She places the tray down, explaining she just wanted to talk to him about something. But Baba just leans in close, telling him that he's basically a puppy. A comparison that leaves Yuzuki completely baffled. He can't understand what she's talking about, but she insists it's true. Grabbing his collar, she admits he's the first person she's ever cried in front of. The thought makes her completely lose her composure, embarrassed that he saw her so vulnerable. She points at him, declaring that with his puppy dog eyes, he's the one who made her feel safe enough to break down. But she quickly catches herself, realizing what she's just said. Her mind short-circuits, flustered that she just wanted to thank him but ended up saying something so strange. Yuzuki just offers a warm, disarming smile, telling her it's okay if he's her puppy. He's just happy that she feels comfortable enough around him to let her guard down. Her eyes go wide, completely caught off guard by his gentle response. She smacks him in a flustered rage, telling him not to say things like that. He just tells her she's the one who saved him, and that she should have more confidence in herself. The tension breaks as they laugh together, a new and comfortable dynamic forming between them. He can't help but wonder how an unpopular guy like him is suddenly able to talk so naturally with a woman. He wonders if it's just the game, or if it's because he's with her. But from the doorway, the influencer watches their interaction with a look of pure annoyance. She decides this is getting far too interesting, and that she has to find a way to break them apart. Meanwhile, Yosuke relaxes in his room, catching up on some gaming magazines. And the CEO unwinds with a drink, his calm demeanor completely restored after the chaos of the game. And in her own room, Runa sips her tea, eagerly anticipating what comes next. The second day begins, and the group can only stare at the wreckage of the Ferris wheel, a grim reminder of their first trial. Yuzuki asks the CEO what's wrong, as the older man points towards the crowd. They see another group of survivors, one of whom is heavily bandaged and clearly in pain. Nearby, 2 other women cry, realizing they're the only ones left from their original team. Yuzuki is horrified, realizing just how cruel and insane this game truly is. He looks down at his own bandaged hand, admitting it's a miracle that all 6 of them are still alive. The others listen, understanding that their survival was anything but guaranteed. But the CEO just laughs, declaring that their survival proves they're both skilled and lucky enough to clear every game. The rest of the group erupts in cheers, their spirits lifted by his infectious confidence. Yosuke agrees with the CEO, confident that their group can clear the next game together. He looks up with a newfound sense of hope, ready for whatever comes next. But that hope is instantly shattered as another contestant on a nearby ride is brutally eliminated. Yuzuki and the others can only stare in horror, realizing the merry-go-round is another death trap. Runa points out it's the hardest attraction, worth 3 hearts, and Yosuke panics, convinced he could never survive it. Baba turns to Yuzuki, the weight of their next decision falling squarely on his shoulders. The group settles on their next destination, a 2-heart ghost house attraction. The map confirms it's a balanced challenge, testing both their minds and their bodies. Yuzuki and the CEO agree it's their safest bet, even as Baba points out a stray shoe, a grim reminder of the last group. But a familiar voice calls out, and Yuzuki turns to see Mamia, who confirms he's chosen the ghost house as well. He's stunned to see Mamia, but he's not alone. And with him is a young woman in a school uniform, looking strangely familiar. Mamia introduces her, but she seems confused, asking what he's talking about. She then introduces herself as Shiraayuki Aira, the very woman he met back in the ballroom. The revelation leaves Yuzuki completely and utterly speechless. He asks about her outfit, and she explains it's her school uniform, revealing she's still in high school. Mamia just chuckles, admitting he was just as surprised when he first found out. He then gets close, reminding her that they're in the same group and even matched in the first game. Yuzuki can only watch, a storm of emotions brewing behind his eyes. He overhears the others commenting on their chemistry, wondering if they're just teammates or something more. The heavy doors to the ghost house creak open, revealing the darkness within. A new melon-headed mascot greets them, announcing that this game will accommodate up to 48 contestants. Just like before, they're instructed to register by placing their love watches into the mouth of a stone statue. The CEO and Yuzuki are both stunned by the sheer number of people participating this time. Yuzuki can't help but worry about coordinating with so many strangers in a single game. With no other choice, the contestants step into the darkness, bracing for whatever comes next. Inside, they find a massive crowd gathered before a portrait of an old man who welcomes them to his mansion. The portrait explains that the man was a genius physicist who spent his life trying to prove the existence of everything. But the one thing he could never understand before he died was the concept of love. And so his spirit now wanders these halls, asking every visitor the same question. The physicist's spirit screams out its final desperate wish to understand the one equation that always eluded him. It then turns to the crowd, asking if they are the ones who can finally prove what love is. His voice echoes through the hall, a desperate plea for them to save him from his eternal question. Suddenly, a massive digital panel at the base of the stairs lights up, displaying a grid of options. Each square represents a different themed room, from forests and stars to angels and toys. A handsome contestant smirks, comparing the entire setup to a love hotel, much to the others' shock. Baba immediately teases Yuzuki for his flustered reaction, correctly guessing his inexperience. Yuzuki can only blush, wondering what kind of twisted game they're about to play in a place like this. Another man points to the screen, telling everyone to pay attention to the instructions. The rules are simple. Choose a room, register the participants, and then step inside to begin. One of the men realizes the game's objective, to prove their love by entering a room with someone. A 1-hour timer begins to count down for all 48 participants, confirming their suspicions. But a new, intimidating contestant with tattoos shoves his way through the crowd. Yuzuki can only stare in terror at the man's sheer size and presence. The tattooed man then singles out a woman in a frilly dress, telling her to come with him. She's completely stunned, asking why he's choosing her when they've never even met. He grabs her chin, telling her to stop talking and just follow his lead. He leans in close, promising that he'll be the one to give her the proof of love. With a cold glare, he asks if she really wants to die here. The woman can only stammer in terror, completely intimidated into submission. Yuzuki watches on, wondering if he should intervene, but knows the woman was forced to agree. The tattooed man selects the angel's room, figuring it's a theme she'd like. He scans his love watch on the panel to register their entry. The screen confirms that 2 people are now registered for the room, marking it as occupied. A lamp next to the door lights up, a clear sign that the room is now in use. The man looks back with a smirk, once again comparing this place to a love hotel. He then grabs the terrified woman's hand, pulling her towards their destination. Another contestant comments on how pitiful she looks, but someone else notes it's better than dying. Yuzuki can only agree with the grim logic that survival is all that matters now. And inside the room, a single white feather falls, stained with a dark, ominous substance. Inside the room, the woman can only cry, completely terrified of the man beside her. But he just tells her to stop, his patience clearly wearing thin. Through her tears, she admits she understands what must be done to survive. But she confesses that she's never even been in a relationship before. The man's expression softens, a flicker of something unexpected in his eyes. He gently reaches for her, catching the young woman completely off guard. But instead of forcing himself on her, he offers a gentle kiss on her forehead. She's completely stunned as he tells her to relax, explaining he only brought her here to keep her safe. He then reveals that they've actually met before, back on the ship during the first trial. A flashback reveals he was one of the servers, the one who handed her a plate at the buffet. He remembers her smile, the one that first caught his eye, and in a burst of emotion, he confesses that he's completely fallen for her. He tells her that this, his genuine feeling, is his own proof of love. The woman can only blush, completely caught off guard by his sincerity. She clutches her chest, a warm feeling spreading through her for the very first time. He leans in close, asking if this is what it truly means to be in love. But in a brutal flash, their tender moment is cut short. An angel statue with a massive scythe looms over their bodies, the game's cruel executioner. Outside, the participant count on the main screen suddenly drops. The other contestants can only stare in horror, realizing the number has just gone from 48 down to 46. Yuzuki can only stare in disbelief, realizing those two were just eliminated. Their tender moment ends in a brutal flash, leaving behind a gruesome scene. He looks back at the board, where the angel's room is now marked as a failure. The very couple who just entered with such confidence have been brutally crossed off the list. The crowd panics, one man screaming that they have to prove their love, while a woman insists that what just happened wasn't love at all. Yuzuki realizes that even if the man had forced himself on her, it still wasn't enough to clear the game. Baba leans in close, asking if that means they'll be safe as long as both parties consent. He's completely flustered by the question, stammering an apology as she teases him for his inexperience. He tries to explain that he can't think clearly in a situation like this, his mind completely short-circuiting. She asks if his heart is pounding from their close proximity. Leaning in even closer, she teases him, asking if he's really ready to prove his love with her. He stammers that she's too close, admitting that he's a man after all, but this is too much. He blurts out that it's not about just doing it with anyone. It has to be with someone he actually likes. Her teasing stops as she asks the obvious question, does he already have someone he likes? Nearby, Mamia calmly tells Shiraayuki to relax, assuring her that there's always a solution to be found. Baba glances over, assuming Yuzuki must be talking about Shiraayuki, the girl Mamia matched with. But Yuzuki quickly denies it, insisting he was just talking about his ideals and doesn't have anyone in mind. Just then, a new voice calls out, getting everyone's attention. A man in a crisp uniform steps forward, confidently suggesting that they should all work together. A man in a strange uniform steps forward, offering a salute and a plan. He recaps the situation. They must pair up, choose a room, and prove their love. But he points out the fatal flaw. No one knows what the correct action is, and they can't afford to guess wrong. Another contestant realizes the strategy. If one group succeeds, the rest can just copy them to survive. The influencer Fukui agrees with the logic, but says she'd rather wait and see what happens. She argues it's safer to let others go first, since there's no benefit to taking the initial risk. But the uniformed man insists that she's wrong, that there is a clear advantage to acting now. He explains that the first benefit is having a wider selection of partners to choose from, and the second is having more options for the rooms, pointing out the ones with ominous names like Hell and Devil. The others realize he's right. Choosing a good partner and a safe room is their best chance at survival. The uniformed man then approaches Runa, asking if she's all right after noticing her anxious expression. She explains that the crystal on her bracelet has changed color, a bad omen in a place like this. She apologizes for overthinking, but he tells her there's nothing to worry about. With a warm smile, he introduces himself as Sasakura Mitsuhiko, a 32-year-old police officer. Runa seems a little surprised by his gentle approach. She introduces herself as Sayotomi Runa, a 19-year-old student, the youngest in their group. He offers a salute, promising to protect the peace of the citizens even in here. But then he asks for her star sign and blood type, a question that seems to come out of nowhere. The strange question seems to catch her completely off guard. She answers his question, revealing she's a Virgo with type A blood. He then declares that according to compatibility charts, they're a perfect match. Elsewhere, another contestant realizes that choosing a partner and a room are both important. But who you choose to be with is the most crucial decision of all. Just then, a woman in a racing outfit taps her foot impatiently. She directly asks the flustered young man to be her partner for this game. He's completely stunned, wondering why she'd pick him when they've never even been on the same team. She explains that he seems like a good person, someone she can trust not to take advantage of the situation. He stammers out a promise to never upset her, and she just laughs, saying she already knew. Yuzuki and the others can only watch, amazed that a new romance is already blooming in the chaos. The young man panics, wondering if proving their love means they have to go all the way, but she just calls him serious. She then turns to the crowd, announcing that she had a feeling he'd say something like that. With a confident wave, she declares that their proof of love will simply be a kiss. She asks if that's within the bounds of sincerity, and he can only stammer out his flustered agreement. With their plan set, she points to the board, choosing the Southern Country room for their attempt. Another contestant comments on how they look like a good couple, convinced they might actually clear the game. Elsewhere, the police officer tries to get Runa's attention. He formally asks if she would be willing to enter one of the rooms with him. Runa can only hesitate, pointing out that they've only just met. But he puts a hand to his chest, promising he would never force her to do anything and begging her to trust him. After a moment of thought, Runa quietly agrees to his proposal. The rest of her group can only look on in absolute shock. Baba and Yosuke rush forward, asking if she's really going to go with him. But Runa explains that she has to go with someone, and she feels safe with Sasakura. Baba can only look on, accepting her decision even if she doesn't like it. She pulls Runa into a tight hug, begging her to clear the game no matter what. Runa then tells Baba to be honest about her feelings for Yuzuki, so she has no regrets. The two of them make a promise to see each other on the other side. The police officer then makes a public declaration, promising he'll only hold her hand and never do anything she dislikes. Yuzuki and Baba can only watch as the new pair prepares to face the game. Yuzuki can only watch, wondering if this is what love looks like in a death game. He remembers the other new couple, their hearts seemingly connected in an instant. He can't comprehend how anyone could fall in love in a situation like this. Inside the Southern Country room, the young man wonders what he should do. The woman confesses that she doesn't want to die, that she doesn't want to be separated from him, and in a moment of pure sincerity, he leans in to kiss her. He promises he won't let her die, admitting that he feels the exact same way. He holds her hands, declaring that this very moment is their sincere proof of love. But their tender moment is instantly consumed by a strange, dark substance. And just like that, another couple is brutally and completely eliminated. The participant count drops once again, now down to 44. And on the board, the Southern Country room is crossed out in failure. The young man's friend can't believe it, wondering why they failed when they seemed so close. Mamia questions if their proof of love was more than just a simple kiss. The friend insists they didn't seem like liars, but Mamia points out that it's still a possibility. He confidently adds that as a lawyer, he's used to dealing with liars and can't just trust appearances. Yuzuki agrees they didn't seem to be lying, but his mind is already focused on something else. The scene shifts to Runa, who marvels at the beautiful starry sky inside her chosen room. She turns to the police officer Sasakura, who stands silently in the shadows, and he looks back with a chilling, unhinged smile, his true nature finally revealed. Runa's eyes go wide, a dawning horror on her face. She takes a hesitant step back from the man she just trusted. Mamiya's voice echoes in Yuzuki's mind, a warning that those who try too hard to look good are often hiding a much darker side. It's a lesson Yuzuki is now learning the hard way, as Runa is pulled into the darkness by the man who promised to protect her. He offers his hand, asking what's wrong as she nervously confirms his promise to just hold hands. He admits that's what he said, but clarifies that was only in front of the others. Now that they're alone, the rules have completely changed. His friendly facade shatters, revealing a twisted monster with a sickening grin. She realizes with dawning horror that no matter what she says, no one can hear her now. He mocks her for being so naive, asking if she really thought nothing would happen in a private room. She reminds him that their very lives are on the line, that one wrong move could get them both killed. But he just calmly explains his twisted logic, that proving their love is a beautiful act, unless she resists. He points a finger at her, declaring that with her consent it becomes a true act of love. Leaning in close, he tells her they must give their proof of love, asking if she understands what he means. Runa can only stare back, completely frozen in terror. He calls her a good girl, warning that if she resists, it will no longer count as proof of their love. Through her tears, she resigns herself to her fate, thinking that if she's going to die anyway, it might as well be on her own terms. And as she's pulled into the darkness, she can only wonder if this is what love truly is. She looks up at the glittering stars, calling out Runa's name in her mind. She's always loved the stars, seeing them as a mysterious light that guides fate, as the officer makes a crude comment about her body. He mocks her for thinking he'd actually help her, his unhinged grin revealing he knows she's inexperienced. But in this moment, she realizes the stars she loved will not save her from the monster before her. Back in the main hall, the Board of Rooms stands as a silent witness to the horrors within. Yuzuki turns to Mamia, wondering how to deal with people who hide such evil intentions. But the lawyer suggests that Yuzuki, of all people, should be able to see through their lies. Baba grabs Yuzuki, asking what he means, reminding him that Runa is in a room with that very police officer. The memory of his polite salute flashes through their minds, a chilling reminder of his deception. Shiraayuki comments that you can't judge people by their jobs, but Mamia suggests that's only half the truth. Mamia explains that a person's job is only their public face. But in a place like this, their true desires are laid bare. The police officer can barely contain his excitement. He concludes that a consensual act must be the only way to clear the game. He then asks Runa if she's ready to try again. He calls this twisted act the ultimate proof of their love. But Runa can only think of her dream to be with someone she truly loves. A single tear falls as she realizes she's been tainted forever. The officer just laughs, mocking her for thinking the stars would ever save her. But his cruel taunt is cut short by a sudden and brutal execution. But in that moment, she realizes the stars have answered her prayer, saving her from the monster. But her relief is cut short as the same brutal fate befalls her. A rain of sharp projectiles ends their game in an instant. And in her final moments, she's just grateful that her heart was saved from being broken. Outside, the star room is officially marked as another failure. The other contestants can only stare in disbelief, realizing that Runa and the officer are gone. Baba is completely devastated, unable to accept that her friend has been eliminated. The CEO panics, wondering if the officer's promise to just hold hands was the fatal mistake. Yosuke breaks down, realizing they have no way of knowing what's happening inside the rooms. But Yuzuki just looks on, his mind racing to find a pattern in the madness. Yuzuki realizes the only way to survive is to go with someone you can truly trust. Because in a private room, anything can happen, and you have to be able to protect yourself. Mamia explains that the safest bet is to find a partner who shares your idea of proof of love. Shiraayuki can only wonder who she could possibly trust in a place like this. Fukui panics, wondering who to choose, with the CEO as one option and Yuzuki as another, though he's already flanked by Baba. Her mind spins, completely overwhelmed by the pressure of choosing the right partner. Just then, a man in a leopard print jacket has a sudden, horrifying realization. He turns to another contestant, telling her that he just counted everyone in the room. He reveals there are 23 men, but only 19 women left in the game. The others realize the horrifying truth. 4 men will be left over with no one to pair with. The man in the leopard print jacket wonders if the proof of love could possibly transcend gender. He turns to his red-haired friend Takashiro, who looks back with a confused glare. The man makes his move, telling Takashiro he'd be willing to go with him, but his friend recoils in shock. He tries to reason with him, asking if there's any other way for them to survive. He points out that Takashiro has no one else to team up with, male or female. Getting uncomfortably close, he whispers that it's their only chance to survive, because he doesn't want to die here. With his terrified friend in tow, he approaches the board, determined to pick a safe-looking room. The other contestants can only stare in absolute shock at this unexpected development. The panic spreads as another man desperately grabs a woman, begging her to trust him and come with him. Mamia and Shiraayuki watch the chaos unfold, realizing that with time running out, they have to make a move as well. Mamia calmly tells Shiraayuki that they'll figure this out together. Yuzuki can only watch from the side, his expression a mixture of shock and something else. He knows they're a team, but he can't stand seeing them so close. And he finds himself wondering why he cares so much about her. He tries to rationalize it, wondering if it's just because she's beautiful and strong, the first woman he met here. Nearby, Baba collapses to the floor, completely overwhelmed by the loss. Through her tears, she can't understand how Runa could be gone when they were just together. A memory flashes through her mind of Runa's final words to her. A promise to be honest with Yuzuki so she wouldn't have any regrets. A single tear falls, a testament to her broken promise and her lost friend. Baba stands up, having made a promise to herself. And it doesn't matter who Yuzuki is looking at or who he might like, because in this moment, she's going to be honest with her own feelings. She suddenly throws her arms around him from behind, catching him completely off guard. Yuzuki can only ask what's wrong, completely stunned by the sudden embrace. Through her tears, Baba confesses that she likes him and asks him to enter a room with her. It's a desperate, heartfelt plea, a gamble on her own feelings. Yuzuki's mind short-circuits, completely unable to process the sudden confession. He stammers, asking if she could possibly be serious about this. And with a look of pure, unwavering conviction, she tells him she's never been more serious in her life. Yuzuki's eyes go wide, his mind struggling to accept that Baba actually likes him. But a wave of pure happiness washes over him, a feeling he's never experienced before. He admits that this is the very first time in his life that anyone has ever confessed to him, and he finally understands how wonderful it feels to be the one who is chosen. He thinks about how she's always so bright and strong, but also has her own weaknesses, and in that moment, he knows that he can trust her completely. Her face lights up with pure joy as she declares that she trusts him too. But from across the room, Shiraayuki watches their exchange, whispering that she believes that if she has to enter a room with someone, it must be a person she can truly trust. And with that, she turns to Mamia, asking to place her trust in him, much to the lawyer's surprise. She reminds him that they matched in the first game and have fought together ever since, making them comrades. Mamia just offers a confident, knowing smile. Taking her hands, he tells her that he feels the exact same way. Shiraayuki looks back with a flicker of relief, asking if he's really sure, and his unwavering expression is all the confirmation she needs. The remaining men descend into a panic, desperately trying to find partners before it's too late. Fukui's mind spins, completely overwhelmed as she tries to figure out who she should choose. But her frantic thoughts are cut short by a sudden development. Another room on the board is crossed out, the one the two men entered together. And inside, the bodies of the two men who tried to transcend gender are a grim testament to their failure. The crowd realizes with dawning horror that the proof of love is not so easily defined. Fukui's face drains of color, knowing her options are dwindling by the second. She sees Yuzuki is already taken by Baba and desperately turns to another man, asking him to be her partner. A man in a firefighter's uniform is completely caught off guard by her sudden proposal. He quickly agrees, suggesting they team up since they're both without partners. Fukui is immediately smitten, seeing the handsome firefighter as the perfect choice. He grabs her hand, asking if she's willing to place her trust in him. She feels the pressure of his grip, urging him to hurry before it's too late. But their new partnership is instantly interrupted by another hand. A handsome man with a beard steps in, declaring that Fukui has already promised to go with him. The firefighter explodes in frustration, furious at the interruption. Fukui can only ask what he means, insisting she never made any promises. But the man, Gutokuji, asks if she can really trust a complete stranger. She admits that in this game, she can't bring herself to trust any of the other women. So he offers his hand, telling her to just choose him instead. She hesitates, thinking he's just another rich guy trying to use his status. But she can't deny that his confident approach is actually kind of charming. Elsewhere, another man desperately tries to find a partner as Yosuke watches on. He turns to Baba, grateful to be with someone he can trust, as Yuzuki looks on in the background. But our boy can only clutch his stomach, completely overwhelmed by the chaos. But Yosuke's eyes go wide as he spots a bloody handprint on the wall. He asks what's wrong, realizing the man has been bleeding this entire time. But before anyone can help, the man collapses in a heap on the floor. Yosuke rushes to his side, desperately asking if he's all right. He checks for a pulse, realizing with horror that the man is already gone. The other women panic, understanding that the numbers have shifted once again. Baba and Yuzuki know they have to act fast before the situation gets any worse. She grabs our boy, insisting they need to get into a room right now. But just as they're about to move, a new figure steps forward. A woman in a stunning kimono approaches Mamia, boldly confessing her love for him right in front of Shiraayuki. She apologizes for the interruption, knowing he has no idea who she is. A close-up on the elegant floral pattern of her kimono. She introduces herself as Tamaki Beniko, admitting she's been watching him since the very first trial. She then turns to Shiraayuki, asking if Mamia is aware of the company he's keeping. Beniko then begs Mamia to enter a room with her, insisting he's the only one who can give her proof of love. Shiraayuki can only look on, completely stunned by the woman's audacity. Mamia just looks back, his expression calm and unreadable. He then asks Beniko what she believes the true meaning of love is. She begins to explain her own philosophy, declaring that to her, love is the act of sacrificing everything. Mamia considers her words, a slow smile spreading across his face as he agrees. Shiraayuki looks on in confusion as Mamia steps forward, with Yuzuki and Baba sensing something is wrong. He takes Beniko's hand, calmly suggesting that the two of them enter a room together. Shiraayuki is completely stunned, reminding him of his promise to go with her. But she realizes with dawning horror that he never actually said those words. Mamia clarifies that he only said he felt the same way, and that they were simply comrades. He coldly explains that her desire to trust him is the same as his inability to trust her, making their proof of love impossible. The cruel logic shatters her composure, and she collapses to the floor in utter despair. Beneko can only look on with a triumphant smile, completely captivated by the lawyer. Yuzuki's face drains of all color, completely unable to process the cold-blooded betrayal he just witnessed. Shiraayuki can only ask why he abandoned her, wondering if their connection meant nothing at all. Yuzuki panics, realizing that if Shiraayuki is left alone, she'll be eliminated, but he's already promised to go with Baba. The entire game hinges on that one impossible question, the proof of love. He desperately wonders what the correct answer could possibly be, or if one even exists. Elsewhere, another man offers his most prized possession, an expensive watch. He explains that giving it away is his ultimate proof of love, a testament to his past struggles. But their heartfelt gesture is met with a volley of deadly arrows. And just like that, another couple is brutally eliminated for guessing wrong. Yuzuki watches the board, realizing that while love has many forms, this game only has one correct answer. The question echoes in his mind, the weight of every life resting on finding the solution. But Baba can only watch in shock as Yuzuki suddenly runs right past her. He rushes straight to Shiraayuki, who stands completely broken by the betrayal. Without a moment's hesitation, he asks her to enter a room with him instead. Shiraayuki looks up in disbelief, completely stunned by his sudden offer. But from the side, Baba can only stare, her heart completely shattered. Through her tears, she realizes he was always looking at someone else. She grabs his arm, desperately trying to pull him back from his decision. She pleads with him, but Yuzuki's gaze remains fixed and unwavering. He looks back with a strange certainty, telling her that everything will be all right. But his words do little to comfort her, as she watches him choose another. Shiraayuki looks up with a newfound resolve, agreeing to go with him. But she declares that all three of them will be going together. Yuzuki is pulled along, completely stunned as he's now flanked by both women. Baba can only look back, her expression a mix of shock and determination. Yuzuki looks up at the board, realizing most of the rooms are already taken. And the only one left is ominously titled the Room of Hell. The three of them realize with dawning horror that they have no other choice. The other contestants can only stare, wondering how three people can possibly enter a room together. Yuzuki points to the panel, telling Baba and Shiraayuki to register their watches first. One by one, they scan their love watches, sealing their fate. Yuzuki scans his own watch, the final member of their unlikely trio, and the screen confirms it, registering all three of them for the Room of Hell. The other contestants are stunned, realizing the rules never actually specified a two-person limit. A woman points out that everyone just assumed it had to be pairs, a fatal preconception. Shiraayuki turns to Yuzuki, admitting that his quick thinking has saved her yet again. Baba then asks if Shiraayuki has any idea what the real proof of love could be. Shiraayuki wonders how they can contribute, as Baba internally questions what this girl really thinks of Yuzuki. Yuzuki looks at the two women who have placed their faith in him. His expression is filled with a newfound and unwavering resolve. He asks them both to trust him, to leave everything in his hands. Both women can only stare back, completely stunned by his sudden confidence. Meanwhile, Beneko looks up at Mamia with pure adoration. She thanks him for choosing her over the other woman, and she promises to do anything for him, the man she's chosen to love. Mamia just looks back with a cold, knowing smile, and he pulls her into a chilling embrace, their new partnership sealed. Elsewhere, another couple enters a room filled with flowers and cartoon bees. Gudakuji and Fukui find themselves in the whimsical flower room. He casually comments that this must be the kind of thing women enjoy, but Fukui just looks back with annoyance, wondering how he can be so calm. She reminds him that unlike the last game, they have to prove their love or they'll be eliminated. But Gudakuji just looks back with a strange, unnerving calm. He then lets out a hearty laugh, completely unfazed by their situation. Fukui is completely stunned, wondering if he's lost his mind. He just tells her to relax, explaining that panicking won't solve anything. He explains that unlike the other games, they can't just copy someone else's answer this time. They have to figure out for themselves what the true proof of love really is. And with a laugh, he collapses onto a bed of flowers, admitting he has no idea what to do. He looks up, a strange sense of peace washing over him now that he's given up trying to find an answer. But Fukui grabs him in a rage, furious that he brought her in here with absolutely no plan at all. She argues that he's a terrible choice, wondering if the firefighter would have been better. But she realizes that even though he's a handsome CEO, his personality is the real problem. Gudakuji just laughs, admitting he finds her true, unfiltered self far more interesting. His comment leaves her completely flustered, caught off guard by his strange charm. She holds a single rose, beginning to explain her own definition of the proof of love. She confesses that to her, it's an intimate act born from a true, heartfelt connection. He just looks back calmly, asking what she wants to do now. With a blush, she reluctantly agrees, saying she has no other choice but to go along with it. Meanwhile, Yuzuki's group enters the room of hell, a stark black space with a single large bed. Baba notes that the bed is big enough for 3, remembering Yuzuki's promise to take care of everything. Yuzuki calmly suggests they head to the bed, a statement that sends Baba into a complete panic. She stammers, asking if they're all going at once or if they'll be taking turns. She then blurts out that if it has to happen, she wants to be the one to take his first time. Yuzuki calmly tells her to relax, assuring her he has no intention of doing anything like that as Shiraayuki looks on. He clarifies that he just meant they should sit down, since the bed is the only furniture in the room. But Shiraayuki cuts in, asking what their proof of love is supposed to be, if not that. Her eyes are drawn to a grotesque painting on the wall, noting its long, sharp claws. But in the next instant, a bright light flashes from the wall, and a massive, bladed weapon shoots out, aimed directly at Shiraayuki's head. She dodges at the last second, the weapon grazing past her as she looks back in shock. Yuzuki rushes to her side, asking if she's all right, as she confirms only her clothes were cut. Shiraayuki realizes the long claws from the painting are what just attacked them. Baba stares at the grotesque art, urging Yuzuki to hurry and find a solution. He can only sweat, the weight of their lives resting on his shoulders. But Baba suddenly declares that she's not going to hold back anymore. She tells him that being with the man she likes is the ultimate form of happiness. Yuzuki is completely flustered, barely able to say her name. He tries to explain that he appreciates her feelings, but Shiraayuki is right there. Shiraayuki then asks if that means he'd rather be with her instead, and Yuzuki is left completely speechless, caught between the two of them. But Shiraayuki admits she has no experience with love, and doesn't even understand what it means to like someone. Still, she's grateful to Yuzuki, and if it's what they must do to survive, she's ready to go through with it. With a look of pure resolve, she begins to unbutton her uniform. A flashback reveals the truth. She only joined this game to get money for her sick mother. Yuzuki can only stare back, completely stunned by her heartbreaking confession. Meanwhile, in the flower room, another couple has made their choice. Gudakuji and Fukui share an intimate moment, with her commenting on his surprisingly good physique. His gentle touch seems to be winning her over, a testament to his experience. He calls her cute, leaving the influencer completely flustered by his unexpected tenderness. She can't understand why he's being so kind, accepting all of her flaws without a second thought. A flashback reveals Fukui's past, a life spent chasing validation and calculating every move. But Gudakuji just asks what she truly wants, telling her it's okay to let go of that facade. And in a moment of pure vulnerability, she asks him to come to her. Their intimate moment is a mix of passion and desperation, a connection that is both strong and surprisingly gentle. Through her tears, she realizes she might actually be falling for him. But their genuine connection is met with a sudden and brutal execution. In her final moments, she's just glad she wasn't alone. Another proof of love proven fatally wrong. Back in the room of hell, Shiraayuki continues to steel her resolve. Yuzuki can only watch, completely flustered as he says her name. But Yuzuki stops her, insisting she shouldn't have to do this with anyone but the person she truly loves. Shiraayuki can only look back, completely taken aback by his sudden and heartfelt words. But Baba clenches her fist, demanding to know what he could possibly mean by that. She confronts him, asking if he's really rejecting her after she just confessed her feelings. Through her tears, she asks if she's really that unappealing to him. Yuzuki stumbles back, desperately trying to explain that's not what he meant at all. The three of them are frozen in a tense, emotional standoff. But their argument is cut short as the ceiling begins to crumble above them. They look up in terror, realizing that if they don't find an answer soon, they'll all be crushed. Shiraayuki looks over at Yuzuki, her expression a mixture of fear and desperation. Shiraayuki admits that while she doesn't understand love yet, she knows that she trusts Yuzuki completely. And because of that trust, with only 5 minutes left on the clock, so she declares that she and Baba will accept him together. It's a shocking proposal, one that leaves Yuzuki completely stunned. He looks back and forth between them, completely flustered by the sudden turn of events. But Baba explodes, declaring that if this is the proof of love, then she'll do it as many times as it takes, demanding to know what Yuzuki really wants. All while the room continues to crumble around them, a stark reminder that if they don't decide soon, they'll all be eliminated. Yuzuki can only look down, the weight of their lives resting on his impossible choice. But Yuzuki looks back, telling her he won't do what she's suggesting. Baba is completely stunned, unable to believe he'd refuse in a situation like this. He remembers her heartfelt confession and Shiraayuki's offer to place her trust in him. He turns to them both with a look of apology, understanding their fear. Shiraayuki can only look on, her expression a mix of confusion and dawning realization. Baba grabs him, desperately begging him to find a way to save them. Shiraayuki remains silent, her own resolve beginning to waver. The pressure finally breaks her, and she cries out that she doesn't want to die, that she just wants to see her mother again. Her desperate plea hits Yuzuki like a punch to the gut. Baba turns on him, demanding to know what he's thinking, furious that he's leaving them to die in this state of uncertainty. But Yuzuki just looks back at them both with a strange, gentle certainty. The two women can only stare, wondering why his gaze suddenly feels so reassuring. And in that moment, something finally clicks in his mind. He realizes that this, their shared vulnerability, is the version of them he wants to protect. He gently wipes away Baba's tears, telling her that it's okay, that she's just like him. And with 1 second left, they huddle together, accepting their fate as long as they're not alone. The clock finally hits 0, the room crumbling around them in a final, violent crash. But in the aftermath, they find themselves alive, a message declaring that the game has been cleared. Their love watches suddenly light up, confirming they've just earned 2 hearts. Baba can only stare in disbelief, wondering how they could have possibly survived without doing anything at all. Yuzuki explains that he's finally figured out the true way to clear the proof of love game. He remembers the grotesque painting, the source of the room's constant threat, and he reveals the shocking answer. The correct action was to do absolutely nothing at all. Shiraayuki can only stare back in utter disbelief, completely lost. Baba and Shiraayuki both argue, reminding him that the rules explicitly told them to prove their love. But their debate is cut short as the melon-headed mascot appears, announcing the end of the game. It calmly instructs all surviving participants to exit the rooms. As the trio walks out, still processing their survival, Yuzuki leads them back to the main hall. He points to the main board, telling them to reread the instructions one more time. And he reveals the game's twisted loophole. The question, "Can you prove what love is?" was never a command, but simply a question they were never meant to answer. He reveals the answer was that love can't be proven, because there is no single correct form. Baba realizes this means they could have cleared any room just by waiting out the clock. Yosuke rushes forward in tears, overjoyed that they're all safe. Yuzuki can only smile, relieved to see his friend again. The others are just as confused, wondering how they managed to clear the game. Yosuke admits they were all too terrified to even move, let alone try anything. Baba can't believe that was really the correct way to clear the game. She turns to Yuzuki, asking when he first realized the truth. A flashback reveals he noticed the wording of the question right before he approached Shiraayuki. She's furious he didn't tell them, but he admits he wasn't confident enough in his theory at the time. He explains that he figured it out the moment Shiraayuki was attacked by the claws. The memory of her narrow escape flashes through his mind. He realized the attack was designed to rush them, to force them into doing something, anything, to survive. But Baba is still furious, demanding to know why he kept them in the dark. She grabs him, screaming that she was terrified out of her mind the entire time. Yuzuki explains that the proof of love game only truly begins once they're inside the room. If he had told them the plan outright, the game masters might have disqualified them for cheating. Baba looks over at Shiraayuki, finally understanding that Yuzuki's indecisiveness was a desperate attempt to save them both. Shiraayuki can only look back, a silent understanding passing between them. Yuzuki clenches his fist, his mind still struggling to process everything that just happened. Baba realizes that with such an elaborate setup, everyone was tricked into thinking they had to do something. She remembers Runa and all the others who died, desperately trying to prove their love just to survive. Through her tears, she screams that it's all too cruel, that she can never forgive them for this. Yuzuki can only watch, stunned by her sudden and powerful outburst. But Shiraayuki takes her hand, agreeing that what happened was unforgivable. And in that moment, a bond of shared grief and anger forms between them. Just then, Mamia's voice cuts through the tension, commenting on their beautiful friendship. He looks down at them with a calm, unreadable smile. Yuzuki asks if he managed to survive, and the lawyer casually confirms that he did. Beside him, Beneko looks on, relieved that Shiraayuki also managed to clear the game. Shiraayuki confronts Mamia, demanding to know what happened to Beniko after he betrayed her. He coldly explains that she's gone, having taken her own life inside their room. Shiraayuki and Yuzuki can only stare in horror, asking how this could have happened. But Mamia just calmly calls it an experiment. A flashback reveals Beniko's complete devotion, her promise to do anything for him. He had embraced her, telling her that he believed in her love. And then he whispered a chilling request, to prove that love by ending her own life for his sake. Mamia clarifies that he only made this suggestion before they entered the room. Once inside, he simply stood back and did nothing at all. And Beniko, driven by her twisted devotion, simply followed through on his horrifying command. He calmly explains that he did nothing but watch as she followed his command. Yuzuki screams in disbelief, asking if he really just used her to survive. Mamia admits that unlike Shiraayuki, Beniko was an easy pawn to manipulate. He saw a clear path to survival by having her take her own life, though he admits it was still a 50-50 gamble on his part. But with a twisted smile, he adds that life isn't fun without a little thrill. Yuzuki can only stare, completely horrified by the man standing before him. Just then, a bright light flashes through the hall. The physicist's spirit reappears, finally understanding that love can't be proven. He wonders if his own desperate search was a form of love all along. The spirit thanks them for their help and declares that they are now free to go. Mamia smirks, commenting that the game is finally over and they should leave. But Yuzuki can only wonder why a man as cruel as Mamia is still alive. The lawyer leans in close, telling Yuzuki not to look so scared before asking if they're really so different. He claims that while Yuzuki seems like a good person, his true self is greedy and ferocious. The accusation sends Yuzuki's mind reeling, remembering all the times he's lost himself in this game, wondering if Mamia is right. But his thoughts are cut short, as Baba sends the lawyer flying with a powerful right hook. Yuzuki can only stare as she screams that he and Mamia are nothing alike. The lawyer just wipes the blood from his lip, admitting that they're both smart. But that Yuzuki is selfish and rotten to his very core. She insists that Yuzuki's intelligence is used to save people, and she declares that unlike Mamia, he acts for the sake of others, making him their savior. Mamia just smirks from the ground, calling her a violent person for her outburst. He then turns to Shiraayuki, reminding her that they're all stuck together in this park. He offers his hand, suggesting that as the only survivors of their original group, they should stick together. But Shiraayuki just walks away, leaving Yuzuki to watch with a worried expression. The memory of their first trial, the Ferris wheel, looms in the background. She turns back to Yuzuki, thanking him for saving her and vowing that she will absolutely survive. She explains it's not just about the money, she came here to change her weaker self. And in that moment, he finally understands why he's so drawn to her. They're both here for the very same reason. She admits that while she doesn't know if this feeling is love yet, she turns back with a smile, confessing that she likes him. She then asks him to look at her after he's considered Baba's feelings. Tying a ribbon around his wrist, she calls it a good luck charm until they meet again. With a cheerful wave, she promises to see him later. And just like that, she runs off into the park, leaving him and Mamia behind. Yuzuki can only stand there, completely stunned and blushing from the sudden confession. Baba just smirks, teasing him for suddenly becoming so popular. She asks if he's planning on juggling both of them, much to his flustered denial. But she just grabs his hand, declaring that no matter what, they'll all survive this together. Baba tells Yuzuki to just be himself, promising that she'll always be right there with him. He can only look back, completely taken aback by her unwavering support. And a genuine smile spreads across his face, a look of pure, unburdened happiness. He takes her hand, a silent agreement passing between them, and he agrees, ready to face whatever comes next as long as they're together. The two of them walk forward, a newfound and unlikely team. Elsewhere, the mascot watches on, absolutely delighted by this sudden romantic drama. It watches the monitors, completely captivated by the plain boy who's suddenly become the star of the show. The audience is just as invested, the comment section exploding with support for the underdog. But the creature knows that as the games get crueler, Yuzuki's newfound popularity will be put to the ultimate test. But behind the scenes, a woman with a calm smile declares that this is exactly how it should be. She explains to a council of observers that it's only through these absurd games that true human nature is revealed. Another woman adds that their goal is to find those who can overcome any hardship and lead humanity in a harsh new world. And the mascot enthusiastically agrees, confirming this is all part of a much larger design. A seal on the wall reveals the game's true name, Project Eden, a plan to ensure humanity's survival. The mascot watches the monitors, calling the contestants the future Adams and Eves of this new world.